Hello, starting off, fit check. Hey, born to die, world is a fuck, kill them all, I am Devilman. Yeah, that's right, it's a Devilman shirt. Bought it on the internet from a link on Twitter sometime years ago. Hello, it's me, that hoe, Chick C, go, Ulden Witch, here in this bitch. I finally made a link tree, linkturd.ee/golden witch. If you go there, you'll find all my shit. Everybody's always like, where do I find all your shit? And I'm like, now you know. Because it can be confusing. I get it. You know? It's hard to keep up. You're just trying to casually enjoy content, and it's fucking all over the place. I haven't finished adding all the links to the link tree yet, though. I've still got to put some obscure shit in there. You know? Most people don't know about Media Melt Magazine, issue number 1, Schizotypical, on the channel Blurry Light Barely Visible Through Clouds and Trees. Most people don't know about that video. Maybe 10 people know about that video. But now you do. And I don't know, I'll find some way to link it on my link tree. I'll link everything. I'll figure it out. But I just created it today, so for now it's just got the most pertinent links. Pertinent. It's early. It's 10 o'clock in the morning here in Virginia, United States East Coast. I assume that if anybody ends up watching this stream, they will be German or, British or something for at least the next couple hours. Nobody has said anything in chat as of yet, so as far as I know, I'm speaking into a blank void of nothingness as I wander the park. None of my usual suspects are awake yet today. Nobody's This is a problem I've been having, though. I wake up very early. I said so in By Daybreak. I wake up early. I slap 3 rappers by daybreak. And so, for me, it's already like midday. Argentina, shout out. For me, it's like, it's already, like I've been up for 4 hours already. No, more than that. I've probably been up for 5 hours already. And, I'm all primed and ready. I've had time to shower and clean up, brush my teeth. That people don't think I do that, but I did it. I've had time to sit around on the internet and listen to podcasts and watch videos and figure out what's going on in culture today and read Twitter, though nothing's happening on Twitter this early in the day. Feels like there's so little time of day that most people use for anything. Hello, Kagurabachi, good username. I like Kagurabachi as well. You can actually find my reviews of every chapter of that over on the We Watch Anime channel, because they have a show called Manga Monday on there. And I've been covering Kagurabachi on the Manga Monday show, and I think it is very good. So, would recommend. Hey, Gary always has made it. I knew some regular had to be available at this time of day. Gary, I don't know what you do, but you do seem to always have time to open up a YouTube screen. I assume it's some sort of desk job where you're not really being watched. You can just play stuff on the side. Yeah, I don't know. Peak hours in America are slim. People don't do that much in the day, aside from me. It's like I don't know. I guess most people just work for like 8 hours, and they have a period of maybe like 2 or 3 hours where they really fuck around on the internet. For me, it's always been more of an all-day thing, You're a nurse in a prison? Oh, wow. It's an interesting job. curious, what prison? I know you are in like Central California. Turns out you're the nurse at Folsom Prison, listening to Johnny Cash every day. Um, Recently, on the way back from Chicago, when we were passing through Ohio, we stopped at this one place just because it happened to be like nearby to where we stopped for gas. We saw there was like a park or something like that, and so we went to check it out, and there were like two massive prison complexes like right smack across the street from each other in this little town in Ohio that basically was just like a tiny town between two prisons, essentially, or next to two prisons. And also directly next to one of those prisons was this like national land where basically it was just I have a bunch of footage of this. I'll probably end up editing into some kind of picnic adventure, but either it'll probably be the second movie actually, but because it was a different adventure from the first movie. But the place was like an Indian burial ground, literally. It was like a bunch of big mounds where, you know, they had found ritualistic burial stuff. So it was basically like you could walk around the grounds around the mounds, you know, not recommended to go on the mounds. But yeah, the person who was manning the counter there was very nice. Despite multiple times people advising me to put on bug spray before I went out walking today, still managed to forget. And as soon as I got to the park, I was immediately being jumped on by every bug in sight, and I was like, I really should have thought twice about the bug spray. Should have had more than one thought about it. I'm even carrying a purse. I could have had it with me, and I completely blanked on it. So I've already got one serious bug bite that I can feel on my leg flaring up. There are still like streamers and shit, like pieces of confetti and shit from that party a few weeks ago. People really just trash this place, man. They come in, they do their shit, they trash this place. I think instead of walking around in the woods like I usually do, since there's not very many people here, I'm gonna sit at a table where I'm not as likely to get eaten alive by insects. That seems like an interest, like a sensical plan. Did you know that your spit makes stuff itch less, makes bug bites itch less? Digi, are you still trans? First of all, I'm not called Digi, I'm called Trixie. And second of all, I don't know. You tell me. Does this look trans to you? Does this seem transgender maybe a little bit? Does the purse say trans? You tell me. How does it feel? I hope there aren't ticks around. Dude, ticks fucking in Indiana Dunes. This huge ass tick landed right here between my knuckles, and like I felt something starting to bite me. Like I saw it, you know, flicked it off, crushed it on the ground, and I was just enraged. Like I felt primal anger on a level I rarely ever experience, where like I just like wanted to be out of that whole zone after that, you know. It was like I don't want to be in the spot we're standing, like you know, I was full of rage. It was by far the biggest tick I've ever seen. But no, I think I probably got a mosquito or hopefully not spider bite on my leg. Probably a mosquito bite. Well, if anybody wants me to rant about literally anything, send me a super chat with your rant request in it. I agree, ticks deserve no quarter. I had the song Ticks and Leeches by Tool stuck in my head like for the rest of the day, you know. That little tick, that little parasite, sucking me dry. They're evil. They shouldn't be allowed to live. But you could probably say the same thing about humans. actually will go ahead and product review this purse, this bag, because it's really good. I've had this for at least a year. I was carrying it pretty consistently all of last year while we were traveling, doing work. You know, I would just leave this on the concrete most of the time while I was working, or took it on hikes and shit, and it has not taken any damage. The tassels are still on. I thought this shit was going to come off right away. I thought there was no way that shit would survive. That shit is on there. It's the clasp is just like this metal magnet, which is pretty cool. Strong enough to stay on, but not difficult to apply. Folds over the back, and then inside got my big ass wallet. This wallet also, you can't buy this anywhere. This is not like this is from Basic brand, or no, it's Sirius brand. It's a 90s brand that doesn't exist anymore. You can see that it is well worn, but that's because I've been carrying this for over 10 years. And like, that's as worn as it is. Like I've thrown that thing around constantly. So, you know, it holds up really well. Inside, we've got 2 interior pockets, one larger, one smaller. Otherwise, it's just a basin, and then there's a zipper, smaller zipper pocket on the inside. So it's not like terribly complex for organization, but I am not an organized person, and I don't try to carry that much shit on me anyway. But this bag was like $35 at, oh, I've also got a bunny sticker stuck on the inside that somehow is surviving. What the fuck is the place called? Earthbound. It's literally called Earthbound, like the video game. Which most of the stuff they had looked cheap and shitty. You know, Bird got like a sweater there that immediately got a hole in it. So I wouldn't recommend most of their stuff, but this bag, it was apparently, it's according to itself, made in India for Earthbound Trading Company, and it's great. So highly recommend if you like it. Every time someone dead names you, it makes me think I should go listen to some Bad Religion. Which song in specific, or are you just thinking the Digital Boy song? 21st century digital boy. Is this a new feature? You talking about the vertical streaming? It's probably new from the perspective of if you haven't been seeing it. It's relatively new. Gary Always with $2. Thank you. Rant about Bad Religion. Live Believe Forever. Bad Religion is great. I think I first heard them in Guitar Hero for the song Infected, and I didn't like it, but I didn't know at the time when I first played Guitar Hero that most of the songs were like covers that sound substantially worse than the original songs. But I literally can't remember how I was put onto the song 21st Century Digital Boy. It was probably somebody on a forum or something. It was like right in the early days of YouTube, so because I found YouTube in late 2006, you know, and I was spending all my time on the internet back then. So I mostly was hanging out in forums. You know, I had a Facebook, but I didn't have any friends, so it didn't spend a lot of time on there. So I spent a lot of time on forums, and somebody must have recommended the song to me. And I quickly got attached to it because of the fact that I saw myself as like a hyper modern person. This is when I was 15? Was I only 15 when I started using that name? Because it had to have been 2006, so I think. Could have been 2007. No, because I started as 2006 Digital Boy at like December 2006, so I would have been 15. But yeah, I had used a bunch of other internet usernames up to that point. Like I started on the internet. Oh, this is not the rant, actually. Forget about that. 21st Century Digital. That's a different rant if somebody wants to pay for it. Bad Religion. I got into them through that song. I named myself after the song 21st Century Digital Boy. Eventually, that transmutated into the name DigiBro, which is why Gary always brought it up. But uh, through that, I started listening to the songs that they had on YouTube, because at the time, YouTube had just such a random smattering of, music videos mostly uploaded by other people, sometimes by their labels. There was lots and lots of AMVs and stuff. And with Bad Religion, I know a lot of the music videos are out there, because I remember watching the American Jesus video a lot, the punk rock song music video a lot, um, and Atomic Garden. These were all in, like, when I first started on YouTube, I would favorite videos and I would listen to my favorites playlist all the time, because it was mostly music. So that was just like, my playlist that I would go back to. So, all those Bad Religion singles were in my playlist. And then Supersonic, of course, had all the Sonic AMVs set to it. And then it was probably years later before I actually downloaded their albums. Like, probably at some point in the 2010s did I actually go and download all of the Bad Religion albums. And Bad Religion is a band where, like, I feel that they are somewhat inconsistent in the quality of the songs, but whenever it's good, it's like amazing, so it's like half of all their songs are kind of whatever, that's fine, and then half of them are like, wow, that song fucking ruled, and they're all kind of in the same sound palette. So even among the good ones, some of them kind of sound similar, and some of the ones that aren't as good, it's just because they sound similar enough to a better song that you're kind of like, well, I don't need that one over this one. But my favorite album of theirs is probably The Gray Race. That's the one I've listened to the most times. It's got punk rock song on it. It's got I've got Them and Us playing in my head right now, but I know that's from that album. It's not one of my favorite songs on it, but it's the one that's in my head right now. And Stranger Than Fiction is also really, really good. That's got Infected. It's got Incomplete, which is one of their best opening tracks. I think it has Sorrow, which is a big single from them. And it has the re-release version of 21st Century Digital Boy, which was the original one I heard. The one they had that was like from the mid 90s, but they had originally recorded it in the late 80s for the album Against the Grain, which is also very good. So yeah, if you're trying to get into Bad Religion, I would start with Stranger Than Fiction and The Gray Race. And then if you wanted to get into their older stuff, go to Against the Grain. If you wanted to get into their newer stuff, go to, like, I guess, True North or something. But I don't know, they've got a lot of albums that I have not really listened to. And like some that, again, have like a couple songs I love. Like, whatever album Atomic Garden comes from is like the only song I like on that album, but I love that song. Bad Religion sounds like pirate shanty punk to me. Vito Gusta. I like my pop punk more pop. I don't. I can't. I don't know. I just didn't grow up with any pop influence at all. So to me, pop is like something that has to be used as like there has to be more to it. I can't just listen to pop music straight up most of the time. The closest I feel like I get is with Clarence Clarity, because he's like kind of almost deconstructing the sound of the 2000s pop I did grow up with, which is pretty much just NSYNC, Britney Spears, and like whatever was on TRL. So like Shiro, what is your deal? I'm just noticing this person. What is your deal? You have a real victim complex. You are banned. Sorry, we don't fuck around with people who are obsessed with their own victimhood on this channel. I don't want to hear about it. Go play that somewhere else. Go tell someone else about what a cultural victim you are somewhere, Shiro. We don't want to hear about that here. But yeah, that's my Bad Religion rant. Good band. Again, I don't like all of their songs, but the ones that I do like, I like a whole lot. I could definitely see, like, I would actually say that probably most of the Bad Religion songs I don't like are the ones where they go too pop. For me, it's like, I Atomic Garden, for instance, being one of my favorites, is like almost a grating song. Like it's not an easy listen, really. Cool shirt, thank you. Born to Die, World is a Fuck, Kill 'Em All, 1979, I Am Devilman, 410,750. Hey, 757, that's my area code. We out here. 8,604, 530 time loops. It's Devilman, and it's also a reference to that internet meme that very few people remember. It's maybe the most obscure shirt I own. I don't know. I own a lot of obscure shirts. I guess the ones I made myself would probably be the most obscure. What's up, Roger Ramos? Welcome back to the stream. Good to see that the usuals are all starting to roll in. Everybody who's got time of day today is making their way into the Pay Pigs Layer, something like that. I don't know this Grimbeard reference, James Dempsey. Working from home right now? Me too, kind of. I guess I'm working from the park. More so than at home. I could work from home, but it's just not as convenient. I would do a lot more live streaming in my backyard if not for the fact that there is a loud ass air conditioning unit that comes on and is quite audible in the stream, and it's not pleasant the way that all the birds and light wind is. I'm glad it's not windy today. The wind has been fucking up my last couple streams. You feel like there's too much BS on top of the songs with Clarence Clarity? That BS is the song to me, though. That's what makes it a song. Like, that's what makes it interesting to me. The stuff underneath is like cliche pop, stuff, but it's all the weird shit he's doing with it that makes it interesting to me. From the 752s, Gary always with the lyrics. From the 757 to the 606, I've been running East Coast, Mid-South, shit's lit. That's from my song Unchained. You can find right here on this channel with the Haruko music video that I made. AMV, I should say. Yeah, 606 is the area code in Kentucky where ASC Presents is located. So that's why 757 to 606. Magic Kaito 1412 isn't as good as most loop on the third anime, but a better induction to Phantom Thief genre. It focuses on what is unique to the genre. I'm not sure you care, but I wanted to say it anyway. Well, your message has been shared, Dash and Scan. It's entered the cultural lexicon forever. Everybody will know that you felt that way. And maybe they'll look into it and decide if they agree. Feel like Peggy is better at making that type of BS. That might be true. It's hard to, I mean, both of them are like my two favorite producers, so like I wouldn't want to put them in like competition. I'd rather mention them in the same breath as people I really like. I think Peggy is cleaner. I think he's a way cleaner producer because Peggy really tries to make every single sound work together. He's just experimental in the sense that his songs have really weird structure, really weird parts. But for me, most of his stuff is kind of too slow and too dissociative, and I kind of get lost in it and I stop really paying attention. That's why Scary the Hose is my favorite album he's ever done, because there's so much going on. It stays maximal most of the way through. Him and Danny Brown are trading off. They're both two of my favorite rappers, so like, it basically solves all the problems I have with other JPEG projects of it being like a little too samey. It's usually just him kind of doing the same flows and saying the same stuff on his songs. Like, he's kind of always locked into like big brain talking about everything mode, and it rarely goes into that more focused kind of like, all right, this is a song about a thing, which is something I appreciate that, when it's done well in rap. And, Clarence Clarity, by comparison, his songs are like always something unique from one another. They use similar sound palettes, so they kind of feel similar. and they're definitely uglier mixes. Anyway, this wasn't something I was paid to rant about, and Lapusha gave me Australian $5. So, rant about Kate Corain. She's a WOK.D. I don't know what that means. The author, but ruined her own career before it started by attempting to sabotage her peers' debut books. Interesting. I don't know. I've never heard of that person, but that is an interesting. It's not a good look to try to fuck over people in your own category. I said this about Null. If you know Joshua Moon, aka Null, the guy who created Kiwi Farms, he started coming at other people that he works with really heavily about, like, basically just for clout, as far as I can tell. I don't really know why. I don't know, like, from a business association standpoint, like, why he was coming at people that he does work with, that he, like, makes deals with. And so I said in the song Burning Down the Barns at the Karen Farms that me and Riley made, how are you going to be in the same boat and keep poking holes in it? You know, like, why would you keep... You are in the same category as these other people, but you keep trying to get them canceled while you are somebody who is, like, widely canceled. Like, why wouldn't you be trying to... But it's like, oh, well, I'm in trouble for this stuff, and you're in trouble for that stuff, and I think I wouldn't be as in trouble if I wasn't associating with you, who's talking about this stuff. It's like, no, we're all in trouble. Everybody who's a free speech advocate is in trouble. You know, like, we should all be working together to be, you know, one unit of edginess. But it's the obsessive demarcations in where each person decides that free speech ends, you know, that causes all these problems. So to me, it's deeply embarrassing that the person who created Kiwi Farms and who created the CWC Wiki is less of a free speech advocate than I am. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But, you know, whatever. He wants to dissociate himself from people based on the things that they say that he doesn't like, which goes totally against the ethos that he you know, proposes. So, you know, when I think of an author, I don't know what this Kate Corain person exactly did. I assume you meant to type that she's like a woke author, or a what does walk.d mean? Unless that's something I just don't know. Who ruined her career before it started by attempting to sabotage her peers' debut books. Like, oh, you meant to say would-be author. Okay, I see. Would-be. Alright, yeah, a would-be author, but she ruined her career before it started by attempting to sabotage. What kind of sabotage? Like, was she just talking shit about them, like, not being good? Or did she try to, like, fuck up their writing? Like, make friends with them and tell them bad advice on how to write their book? Like, I'm very curious, how does one sabotage other authors' books in such a way that everyone hates you and won't read your book when it comes out? Like, you had to really fuck that one up. You're somehow shocked by the revelation that CWC Wiki equals Kiwi Farms, and also not that shocked. Yeah, it started as Quickie, and then, you know, as Josh Moon started making money from that, expanded it into a whole... If you don't know what Kiwi Farms is, it's a website that tracks lolcows, essentially. Although eventually it just became tracking everyone who is in any way has any notoriety. Like, if you're famous, people just want to find reasons to make fun of you. So this is a website for making fun of people. Not even famous, really, because a lot of them are just people on the internet that someone else has a problem with, you know? There is, like, a level of you have to get your threads approved. Like, Null has to decide that he cares, or there's some people he specifically won't let have a thread. Like, people will try to make one and he won't let it happen. So it's gay. It's the gayest shit on the internet. It is by far the gayest place that's ever existed, and not in the good way, where you just, like, men fucking other men. That's good gay. I'm talking about the bad kind of gay, where it's like, you know, just that noise. She made up a bunch of fake Goodreads accounts and reviewed her own book positively. Only one bad review for me. Everyone else, including someone else, was self-published. I've seen stuff like that with YMS used to talk about this when he used to cover, like, kind of obscure movies that still manage to be overrated, like Megan is Missing, where like like the creators of the film are very clearly going in and like leaving positive reviews of their movie, leaving like negative comments about other people who reviewed their movie negatively and stuff. Like, it's pretty funny. Um, you know, it's a crabs in a bucket mentality. We're all looking for somebody that we can pull down so that we can take their spot, and I'm included in that. But I see it as I'm going to drag down crabs that I see dragging down other crabs. Like if I see a crab that's just trying to get out of the bucket and he's not grabbing any crabs, I'm like, I'm gonna boost that crab. And this crab that's grabbing all those other crabs, I'm gonna take that crab, I'm gonna put him under this crab, so that crab gets up higher. If it's got to be crabs in a bucket, I'm gonna take the most aggressive crabs, and I'm gonna be the aggressive crab aggressor, if that makes sense. I don't know why I do this to metaphors. I'm gonna have to put that on a t-shirt. I don't know why I do this to metaphors. Wait, we could take Truthy's spot as an AnyTuber? My spot's already been taken. My spot's gone. What spot? My anime channel gets 5,000 views if I'm lucky. I have no spot as an anime reviewer. That's why I'm doing live streams. I make a lot more money doing this than I do making anime reviews right now. I can't afford not to do it. So, my spot's been taken by good people. There are plenty of good anime analysts out there now. Eventually, I'll do a stream where I have my laptop next to me and I will read out a list of anime analysts that I recommend. But by no means do I have a spot in that right now. Not the way that we're talking about, anyway. I haven't figured out what I have to become the number one at anymore, Like, I still put out videos and we watch anime and Substack? Of course, I have to. That's also part of the job, but I'm just telling you why I'm doing live streams. Sorry, I feel like there's a tendency on the internet where if somebody says one thing, then people tend to interpret it as though that thing means that everything else is now like all the flip side of that is, God, how do I describe this? It's something I encounter all the time. Well, I've got another super chat, so I'll think about this more in a second. James Dempsey with $5. All right, so let's hear your take on queer liberation then, because that sounds like a fascinating distinction. Crab bucket. Queer liberation. The waffles versus pancake paradox. Man, I don't know what you're talking about. You're going above my head. Queer liberation, though. I mean, are you just talking about like queer people liberating themselves? I don't know if this is like a specific thing you're talking about, because you use such like what sounds like terminology that I've never heard before. Especially in describing waffle versus pancake paradox. If you're just asking for my thoughts on like queer liberation, I think it's important that queers liberate themselves and allow themselves to be themselves. I have a hard like if I'm out in a skirt, I know factually, like, because I can see in people's faces the confusion. I can see the instinctive, oh, is that a man or a woman? Wait, is that a man in a skirt? Wait, like, I could see it happening in people's faces. And it's going to take a lot of people like me existing before that becomes a fact of life that isn't distracting to people. Before it doesn't become the first thought when they see you is like confusion over the gender, I don't care if they think I'm a, quote, man in a skirt or a trans, I would prefer they thought, oh, trans woman. Like, if I'm being clocked, I would prefer the thought be, trans woman, not, oh, that's a dude in a dress. Like, well, there's a word for that you can use culturally that's more appetizing, if you will, to the person you're speaking about. But most people don't know that, so I'm not gonna be angry about it all the time. Eternal suffering with 20 mad? MAD? What are those? Why did Umineko have such a big effect on you? It honestly didn't. It's not that it had a huge effect. It's more a matter of convenience. Um, so, the story with Umineko is simply that my cousin, well, not my cousin, my good friend Marcus, he was the first friend of mine to watch the show, and he got really into it. I think him and Victor might have watched it together, or they were both watching it at the same time because Marcus got him into it. And I think Vic just kind of thought it was okay, and Marcus was just super into it. So I ended up watching it, and I really liked it. And so, you know, I didn't like it nearly as much as he did, but I just thought it was a neat show. I liked the concepts in it, and the fact that it was a show all three of us had just watched and we all liked, the three of us were trying to make a band together, so I named the band Trial of the Golden Witch, named after one of the episodes. And the gimmick was that each of us would be named after one of the characters. So Victor was supposed to be Battler, Marcus was George, and I was actually Kinzo, the you know, the granddad, the big evil guy or whatever. So that was like how I was crediting us on the first couple Trial of the Golden Witch releases. Now, we only ended up doing music together a couple times. I did more without Vic. Well, we involved more friends, and like it just kind of became like whenever me and my friends were over and we would make improv music, I would record it and I would release it onto Pure Volume under the name Trial of the Golden Witch. And I released like 110 tracks in the first year that we were doing it. And then out of those, I selected what I considered the best, and that is the first release on my Bandcamp, Best of Year 1. So that's all the collaborative stuff from when Trial of the Golden Witch was conceptually like a jam band of me and whoever was around. And that was still kind of the case for the first few Bandcamp releases up until, like, I want to say Life Without Silence is probably the first, like, totally solo one I did, where nobody else is on it at all. And then I was just kind of doing experimental noise music. It's like I didn't know how to play any instruments. So, like, you know, the reason I had to have other people involved is I didn't know how to make the music. And so I started experimenting with, like, Music Concrete and stuff to, you know, just find a way to make something sonically interesting without knowing how to play instruments. And through that experimentation, and then eventually getting into hip-hop, and then eventually all this, you know, I kept using the name Trial of the Golden Witch, and eventually it just kind of became my hip-hop name because most of the music I released was solo hip-hop projects. So when I finally started transitioning, I was really struggling to find a name that makes sense, because I don't just come up with a name out of the blue sucks. You know, I don't have any emotional connection to a name I just make up. So I didn't want to pick a name that didn't mean anything to me. It had to have some kind of connection, because it can't be something that 2 years later I would be like, oh, I should have thought of this name, you know, and then replace it with something else. Like, it had to be something that had a meaning to me. So it took a while. You know, when I started transition, I didn't want to be called Digibro anymore, so I changed my moniker online to DigiNay, and that was just confusing. Nobody understood the branding. Not enough people know that Nay is, you know, Japanese for sister. So it was just like odd branding, and I was calling myself Gray, or just like using the name Baroness Gray online, because that's just like a name I used in video games. It was all just like temporarily handling to figure out what the fuck am I gonna call myself. And then at some point I realized that that Beatrice, the character from Umineko, is transgender. This is like, I guess, a late game reveal, like way later into the game series than what the anime got to. So I didn't know this. I had no way of knowing it, you know, until people started telling me. So when I found that out, I was like, well, I've been Trial of the Golden Witch for fucking almost 10 years by that point. You know, like, I've been releasing music under that name. And when I thought about, like, who is the Golden Witch on trial in the music, it's me. All of my music is about me. I am the most I-centric rapper I can think of. Like, all of the music is just me and my emotions and my situations being on trial. So I said, okay, if I'm the Golden Witch and Beatrice is, a trans character in the first place, this makes perfect sense. So just, and I like the name Beatrice because it's simultaneously an old name. It's a name that's been around for a long time, and people my generation still know the name, but almost nobody my age is named Beatrice. It's a name that went out like 2 generations ago in popularity. So it's on the it's on the decline basically, and so I knew it would be a name that not a lot of other people were going to have. And then I also found out that Beatrice shortens to Trixie. And having gotten my start on YouTube as a My Little Pony YouTuber and having been a fan of the character Trixie, the Great and Powerful, which is a similar name structure, Trixie the Golden Witch, Trixie the Great and Powerful, I thought, okay, perfect. I'll be Beatrice in real life, I'll be Trixie the Golden Witch online, so that it's a cross-reference both to Umineko and to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So the whole of the name is a cross-reference between all those characters, but it's not that Umineko actually meant that much to me itself, so much as that I just incidentally started using the branding, and then eventually it made so much sense that I just embodied it. I talked about this on a different live stream, but I am at one day hoping to organize doing a live stream series of me playing Umineko, but it will take so much time that I would need it to be like a massive event. Like, I would need to know for a fact there were going to be like hundreds of regular viewers and that I was going to make a lot of money doing it. So I've even considered doing like a crowdfunding to make it possible or something. Like, how many hours is this game? What would be the rate if I was making, let's say, $20 an hour or something? Like, if that was my asking price, how many hours is the game? Like, let's set up the Indiegogo to ensure I am employed for 80 hours of playtime or whatever the fuck. You don't think I'd be able to get through the Umineko? I would if I was getting paid and if there were people doing it with me, because it's different to do it in front of an audience. And like, if I was just reading the thing, again, that's like 80 hours in and of itself. Doing it as a live stream, it will take a lot longer because I'm going to communicate with chat. I'm going to be talking about what I'm reading. I'm probably going to be like reading it out loud, so it will take forever, but I think it would be a great series. I would need enough people to be like gung-ho about me doing it, and I don't know if that many people give that much of a shit to spend that much time. But it would also be a great way for a lot of people to experience Umineko who, like me, are never gonna fucking play that thing without someone getting paid. God damn it. Alright, well, I guess that answers that request. So if anybody else has anything else you want me to rant about, send the super chats along. Meanwhile, I'm going to try to remember what I was talking about before I interrupted myself with that. Was I still talking about queer liberation before that? Trying to? I don't remember. $60 hours or so. Is that for just one though? I've just always, I know there's like in 10 games or 12 or something like that. There's a lot of Umineko games, and they're all independently decently long, I think. And I've everyone I've talked to has corroborated that about a third of all of it didn't need to be there. Now, granted, you could say the same thing about Homestuck, and I read almost all of Homestuck, so is there a particular reason I'm streaming daily? Money. I've been making more money doing this than I have been making doing anything else. Honestly, I intended to start streaming daily when we quit doing our job at the end of last year, but I haven't been able to since moving into my parents' house because we don't have a good room for me to do it in. But when we were at... I'm fucking speaking very quickly. Let me slow myself down. last year, Bird and I were traveling for work. We had a job going between banks and changing stuff inside the banks. And we traveled all over the United States to different banks doing this. And while we were doing that, we had the We Watch Anime podcast running. So the We Watch Anime channel started as just this podcast show for us to keep up with current shows, talk about them, and also talk about whatever we did that week. So every episode, we would start off with like 40 minutes of here's what we were doing, and then we'd get into all the anime. So we did that for like 8 or 9 months, and it was going really well. It was very fun to do. But then we decided we were going to change jobs, and he was going to go back to regular employment, and I was going to go back to trying to make money on the internet. And in between those two things, we had a couple of weeks where we babysat dogs at his grandparents' house, and I wrote 24 anime videos, which I decided I would release periodically all year in the hopes of just basically having guaranteed content that would come out regularly so that people know that I'm around. But my real intention on top of that, because that's supposed to be just like the easy thing that you know that are like I already wrote all these scripts, so it's just a matter of getting them out there. But the intention was to do another show called Comments on Comments, and the first 3 episodes of that are up here on this channel, and they did decently well. So I still think I'd like to bring that show back. But the problem is that Comments on Comments is a very structure-heavy show that involves, a lot of work, but mostly a lot of screen caps, a lot of, reference material. It's meant to have guests on it. So it's something I would have to do seated at a computer, like talking to people over StreamYard, and have 2 hours or 3 hours blocked out for it in my day. And I don't have space to do that at my house. So ever since moving into my parents' house, I've been more focused on getting the anime content out, getting stuff for my Substack, working on music, because I do have time for that. With music, the actual recording doesn't take very long. It's mostly all the other stuff around it. So, I've been working on stuff that I can do at home. But then we went to Chicago for C2E2, and Mint Salad was doing all-day live streams. And that Saturday that she streamed all day, and I was, me and Bird, we were in that live stream for like a considerable amount of the day. She had 100,000 views when that live stream was over, like at the end of the day, and she'd made like fucking $900 or something like that. And I looked at that and I went, wow, I'm getting on that meta right now. And now here we are with a $2 super chat Australian from Laputia, rant about the Palestinian genocide. It's bad. It's not a good. It's a bad thing. They should stop doing that. They should really stop doing that. If I had to give any advice to Israel, stop doing that. Just maybe don't do that anymore. No more Palestinian genocide. Let's just stop that. The Filthy Frank, it's time to stop. Like that level of you should stop, probably. About a Filthy Frank level of needing to stop, I would say. Do I have thoughts on Narcissa Wright? I've never heard of them. I'm sorry, I don't know a lot of reference points outside of YouTubers, Twitter people, anime people, manga people, and musicians. If we're talking about, you could particularly hip-hop musicians, but if you named basically any hip-hop or rock musician, I probably have an opinion about. Maybe not any rock musician, there's a lot of rock musicians, but most hip-hop and rock musicians I have some opinion about. Most YouTube, well, I won't say most YouTube personalities, most analytical YouTube personalities I have an opinion about. Or like culture commentator type people. And then, Twitter users. But, you often don't live to your true self, but then think maybe you shouldn't. Well, depends on if you respect your true self or not. I think you should live to the parts of your true self that you respect, and if there's a part that you don't respect, you should make it so that's no longer what you consider your true self, you know? Like, I think there's a lot of people who get hung up in the fact that, like, your instinct and your impulse is always going to tell you to do all kinds of shit that you know you shouldn't do. And, like, if you just regard that as, like, oh, whatever, you know, that's just the way the brain works. It can't be helped. Sometimes you have crazy thoughts, you know, but, like, that's not, your actions are what define who you are, not your thinking, you know? So if you feel like the actions you take are appropriate and you're proud of yourself, that is being your true self, in my mind. You know, if you take action that you are not proud of and you feel like you wish you hadn't done that, and, like, you know, you actually went against your instinct, like, that's when you should feel. What are you asking me to say, Amara? I can say that if you pay me, but I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. I don't know what the hell all that says. This is a strictly super chats for requests stream. May I remind everybody, we are at war. So I need all of the money I can possibly get to fund the war effort. I went to war with that anime snob the other day, and nobody cares because the main reaction has been, that guy still makes content about both of us. So, you know, it hasn't flared up to a spectacle event that people care about yet. But that anime snob, he really hates queer people. So if you would like to see somebody who really hates queer people take a big L this year, make sure I have more money than him at the end of the year. That's the wager. That's the war I started with that anime snob. He currently has $8,000. I currently have. Hold on. I'm using my phone. I can't look it up. I think I have $270. That's right, everyone. We've gone up. Remember yesterday and the day before when I had $40? I've got $230 more now. So the war effort is going strong. It's working. It's going good. We are on the up and up. How much money did that anime snob go up by last night? Did he suddenly receive $230 in his bank last night? Or is he still sitting at 8K? Or did maybe a bank withdrawal happen last night? Could it be possible that anime snob's bills came out and now he's got less than $8,000? We don't know. We have no idea. You want real financial transparency? That $270 will be gone by the 1st. Based on all the things that I want to have now. Now that I have money. Namely, my phone bill will be paid on the 26th, which costs $80. I'm out of weed, so I'm gonna get a vape. The vapes have been the most cost-effective way to smoke that I've found. That'll probably last me like 2 weeks on $50. Maybe 1 week on $50. I don't know, but it's a lot better deal than I've been getting. So yeah, I will quickly burn through that money, but I have it. Like in total, yeah. What do you think I'm talking about here? You think I don't spend all of my money as soon as I get it? Look, money only loses value. When you hold on to it, it diminishes in value. You get $10,000 this year, that's going to be worth $9,000 next year. But it's worth $10,000 if you spend it right now. So my theory is, don't hold on to that money unless you're putting it into an appreciating asset. If you're taking your money and you're buying government I-bonds or government I-bills that actually are inflation-proof and you collect a 5% interest rate on them once they complete their term, that's a way you can keep your money and it'll still work. But otherwise, you just get rid of that shit. Make it go away, quick. You know, if you buy a house in a place where houses are appreciating in value, that's not spending money. That's just moving money. And I'm trying to move my money into the hands of a phone company and a marijuana dealer. tomorrow, today, something like that. I don't know. But after that, when I get paid on the 1st by Patreon, I will actually have money in the bank that I won't have to spend immediately because I won't have a phone bill and I'll still have weed and I will buy groceries or something and alcohol, and then I'll have money I can put away into I-bonds. That's all I'm going to spend my money on, by the way. All of my extra money, like whatever I have when I'm done spending my money. So like let's say that next month I've already made $1,000 streaming this month. So I'm not going to see any of that money till the 21st. So on the 21st of May, no, this is May. Today's the 21st of May, 22nd of May. Today's the 22nd of May. On the 22nd of June, I will receive at least $1,000 from YouTube. With that money, I can buy some I-bonds or some I-bills that I know will appreciate in value. And everybody will be proud of me and they'll tell me how smart I am with my money, because if you ask literally any person who talks about investment, what is the safest investment? What is the safest thing you can do with your money? The only answer they will give you is government I-bonds and I-bills. So that's what I'm doing. Going straight for the I-bonds and the I-bills, which is the government's debt. It's owning the government's debt. The government would have to end to default on that debt. So, you know, as long as the government exists, you can collect that I-bond money. In Argentina, you have 200% annual inflation. That's crazy. I definitely would not hold on to any money in that situation. Put your money into a savings account, but that's what I'm talking about, where it can just lose value, though. Because as the economy inflates, that money just becomes less worthful. Let's start moving again. Girl finance, girl math. Look, you just got to keep it as simple as possible. The simpler you keep it, the more accessible it is, and the more useful it is. As soon as you start complicating your finances, that becomes your life. That becomes what you're doing, is managing your money. I don't want to be doing that. I do not want to have to spend time thinking about my money, managing my money, doing shit with my money. I want to spend time using the money. So, to me, you get the money so you can use the money. And then, you know, if you have some left over, it's kind of dangerous. It's kind of dicey to have it left over, because everyone in the world has every incentive to get all of that money from you. If people know you have money, they're going to do everything in their power to get that money from you. They're going to try to put you in debt. They're going to try to sell you shit. They're going to find some way to restructure the law so that more of the money comes to them, you know? If you don't deal with all that shit, you're just like making a little bit of money, spending a little bit of money. It's not that big of a concern, you know? And so I'm thinking, you know, if you get that extra bit, don't complicate it. Don't try to min-max your money all day, unless that's all you want to do. Unless you just want to be the finance person, which, hey, if you're trying to bag a bad bitch, that's the only way you're going to do it. You have to become obsessed with money to find a woman who's obsessed with money. Now she's just going to leave you for somebody with more money one day, but you'll have some time, you'll have some memories with that bad bitch. You know, if you want a woman for life, do not pick a bad bitch or a man or whatever, you know, whatever you're after. You know, pick a humble, good-natured person who enjoys going outside And you'll never have to make a lot of money because they won't require a lot of maintenance. Batman's here. What the fuck? Literal Batman. I'm Batman, and I'm here to send a very important message to you. You are one of the most... It says you're one of the most handsome men I've ever met. Keep up with the good content. Funny. Funny troll. Batman would never say that. Batman's not gay. Batman is not gay. Batman doesn't go around telling men how handsome they are. You are gay. You are going around telling people that they are handsome men. So, unlike Batman, you're gay and you should stop calling yourself Batman. Not that you really get a choice, because you're getting banned, bitch. Take it in the ass. From me. You even tried to type something, didn't you? But too late. You've already been hidden from the channel. We're ruthless here. This is open warfare, you know? How do you guys visualize the stream space? Or like, so here's something I've thought about. Like, I feel like there are some people, whether they're viewers or chatters or whatever, who view it like it's just me and you. Like, you know, there's me out here in the woods, there's you wherever you are with your phone, and we're just, you know, you're listening to me. And then, from my perspective, it's kind of like I've got a mobile room around my head where you're all in it, you know? Hold on, I gotta answer the super chat from D's. $10. Hell yeah. Big money! Watch the US government collapse before the end of the year and Anime Snob wins. Well, okay, yeah, I guess if I put all my money into I-bonds and then the government collapses and then I end up... So that's another thing though, right? This isn't a competition of net worth. So if I kept my money in those I-bonds, it wouldn't count. It wouldn't count towards the end goal. It's about money in the bank. I say this because I have no idea how to determine either of our net worth. I don't know what kind of assets that Anime Snob has. I don't know what my assets are worth. I have a ton of stuff, you know? Some of it is questionably worth anything now. Some of it will questionably be worth more later. Who knows? I just own a lot of shit. So I have no way to determine the overall worth of all the things I have. And I'm even including stuff like, I have what should be, as last I saw, $350 worth of stocks. But you see, I had them in TD Ameritrade, and they changed over to Charles Schwab and made me change my password. And I don't remember what I changed my password to, because they had some kind of obscure password rules, I guess. So I didn't use the usual passwords I would use. So I don't know how to get into my Charles Schwab account. I have no idea what my stocks are worth right now. I've got stock in Best Buy, fucking Love's, Art House. No, Art. Is that what it's called? Our House. Like A-R-H-A-U-S. Our House. It's like a home furniture store or something for rich people. Oh, what are my other two stocks? 3M. And that's because 3M made all the materials that we used to use for work. So I know that they are deeply embedded into the world. And Best Buy, 3M, Our House, Love's, and Love's because it's the best convenient gas station. If you find a Love's, you're always like, we're gonna stop at the Love's, you know, when you're out traveling, especially in New York, because it's the only one that's on the turnpike. If you're going to Boston from Rochester. Fuck, I have a fifth thing I have stock in, and I can't even fucking remember it. Well, anyway, I own some stocks, and I don't know what they're worth right now. I don't know how I got on this rant. Oh yeah, US government collapse. All right, there's another super chat, £5, from Sven Oswald. I keep trying to hit like and accidentally... Like, if you click on the comment, it brings up like a comment menu, but I have to click on the comment to get to the little like and the heart. They should keep the like and the heart on the little menu that comes up when you click on the comment. Take note, YouTube, please. What would it take for you to be a top anime reviewer in your opinion. You taught me on how to watch any show, like if a show keeps on not delivering the premise it is building, or your legendary rant on Sword Art Online. So, here's the thing. I think that I was never an anime reviewer. You know, like, I brought into this world the concept of the analysis video for a specific reason, which is that back in the anime blogging days, you know, my favorite writer was Ghost Lightning, who's sort of my mentor, and he was always very insistent that he did not write reviews, you know, and his posts titles were never like, you know, Gundam review. It was like things, or like the nature of fucking belief in Mobile Suit Gundam or something like that, you know, like a title that suggests a theme that he's approaching in the writing. And so they were usually about themes, about characters, about like specifics of the story that he was analyzing. And he didn't know how to refer to these things. He was always like, I don't know, they're not reviews. I don't want people to think that I'm making value judgments. And I said, isn't this analysis? Isn't that what's called analysis? You know? So we started using the tag analysis on any posts that we considered analytical. And I became obsessed with that kind of being the defining line between stuff I liked and stuff I didn't like. Because value judgments are not interesting to me. I don't care that someone liked a piece of media or not. I care what it did to get that effect. And reviewers talk about that sometimes. The good ones do. You know, like, I like Roger Ebert's reviews. I read a shitload of them. They had a big influence on me. But, like, it wasn't whether he liked the movie or not that was interesting. It was what he had to say about the specifics of it, you know? And there's his overall read on the soul of the movie, so to speak. And so, you know, I might agree with him on what he saw in the film and just feel differently about whether I like that or not, you know? And that's something that's only possible because he was describing why and not just that. And so when you start describing why, though, the reasons are often really similar. You know, like, why is this thing good? Because it followed all the rules of what makes a thing good and also did a little of its own thing, you know? Or, oh, it broke all the rules that would normally make something good, but it did its own thing so much that it's usually pretty easy to get into why it's bad, why it's good. Usually they fail for the same reasons or they succeed for the same reasons, you know? So to me, there's only so much media analysis you can do before it just is the same shit. Like, you're just saying the same thing about a different show. And so that's the biggest trouble I always had writing about anime, is that people would want me to just kind of talk about every show they like and like, okay, well, apply your logic to this show. And I'm like, you could do that. You can apply my logic to that show. I gave you the logic. I gave you the tools. You don't need me to do this, you know? So I can't feel compelled to do something I don't feel like I need to do. Like, if I don't feel like people, if I feel like people are coming to me because they want me to, because they already have the answer and they think I will get the same answer, and so they want me to watch the show so that I will write about the answer they already found, write your own fucking video. You know, like, that's, I used to do that to my brother Victor all the time. Like, Victor would, you have to watch Ucho Tenkazoku. You'll have such an interesting analysis of it. And I'm like, you're making me not want to watch the show because now I feel like I have to get the same profound message out of it that you do. And if I don't, you know, if I get something different, I don't know if I'm going to write the video you think I'm going to be able to write, you know? And the one time he did this with Mob Psycho, my Mob Psycho video, which has like 1 million views, literally happened because I stood in the kitchen with Victor and I said, like, what anime do I need to talk about right now? And he was like, Mob Psycho 100. You have to write an analysis. And I said, what do I need to say about it? And then he broke down the themes of the show, what makes it interesting. And so I just kind of watched the show to confirm that what he said was true. And then I wrote basically what he said, you know, like in my own words into a script. And it's like, here's exactly why Victor says that Mob Psycho 100 needed to be talked about by me. And like, you know, he didn't feel that he could find the precise words to make that come across the way I did, which is why he thought I needed to make the video and not him, you know? But to me, it's kind of like he did make the video for me so I could redo it, you know? Like, I see that as more of an editing role than as a necessarily creative one, because maybe I would have come to the same conclusions about Mob Psycho, but I watched the show under the presupposition that it had these themes, and I confirmed them, you know? So, like, so I think maybe if more people were just feeding me more information, like if people were just literally giving me like a 2-page script on a show and being like, here's my shitty version of what I want you to rewrite, and that was happening all the time, which I'm sure is how a lot of anime reviewers are doing it. You know, I happen to know that a few of the top AniTubers had a writing team, you know, they're not just, but usually just to confirm stuff. Like, you know, like Nino used to work for Gigak in the role of just being his guy to make sure that he's saying like correct shit, you know, like, hey, am I right if I say this about samurai anime or whatever? And Nino can go, yes, or, well, actually, you know, and then explain some other shit. Like, I've never really done that kind of collaborative level with my writing. It tends to be more of just like a mind to paper, you know, like all at once. Very rarely that I've done like collaborations with like Tommy Oliver back when he was Brony Curious in the early days, you know, like, so, yeah, like, just, I feel like I lost track of what I was trying to say there. What was I answering? What would it take for me to be a top anime reviewer? I guess, yeah, it would take me to get a lot more information from other people and rely less on my own creativity, which is not that interesting to me. Like, which is why I don't feel like I want to go that route, because, you know, I just feel like you get further and further from like really sending a message if you're just like kind of sending everyone else, like if you're just speaking on behalf of the people, then I see how that works for people who themselves are not going out and reading a lot, right? But like, if, for instance, I watch a YouTube video where I feel as though that person is basically just collecting public sentiment and repeating it, I've already seen the public sentiment, you know, like I don't want to hear that collated thing, but I can enjoy that if it's something that maybe I don't know that much about, you know? So like if it was a category where, like, let's say that somebody's just telling me what is the public perception of something that happened in K-pop, right? Like maybe some big event happens in K-pop, and then, you know, there's like an internet news source that has a video about how everyone's reacting to that. That might intrigue me because I don't know fucking shit about it and I'm not following its fan base, and you know. But if it's anime and say like, you know, Glass Reflection makes a video where he's trying to sort of collect public sentiment into a overall piece, I'm like, yeah, but I already read everyone's reviews, you know, like I don't need to see somebody repeat all that. So so it's hard for me to imagine myself trying to become a top anime YouTuber, because I kind of look at it like I got in, I did the thing I was there to do, and then now I just kind of am sprinkling out, like, usually I feel like my content is either me rephrasing something I was trying to say before but said poorly, or bringing a really new idea that I want other people to think about forward, you know? One of the videos I did recently was a good example of this. Oh, actually the first one, anime with villainous heroes, right? No, antagonistic heroes, yes. Antagonists as heroes in anime. Like, what's my next video about? It's the Jujutsu Kaisen versus Evangelion storytelling spirals. I can't explain it any better than that without just doing the video, so you're just gonna have to wait for it to know what the hell it means. But yeah, like the heroic antagonists in anime video, like, it started with me watching Cat's Eye, thinking about how interesting it is that like the antagonist is such a good guy, and how that kind of reminds me of Lupin the Third, which had also been airing earlier that night on the same channel. And like, And then I thought about L from Death Note, and I was like, okay, who else is there? And I was shocked by how few examples I could come up with. So to me, that video was kind of like, hey, here's all of the anime with heroic antagonists that I know of. A, do you know any more? Do you have any more thoughts about this? And like also B, have you even considered this as like a writing tool? You know, like for there to be so few stories that have antagonistic or heroic antagonists is how I should say it. It's not that they're antagonistic, it's that they are just the antagonist of the story because the hero is in some way a villain. You know, even if they are still kind of a hero, they're trying to do something that the antagonist is not wrong for trying to stop them from doing, you know? So like, it's just not something that gets used that much, and that surprised me. And so that kind of ended up becoming to me the point of the video, is to highlight how underutilized this thing is and see if other people will take that and run with it, you know? So many people have always told me that like they consume my content while they're doing art. Like they like to listen to it while they're drawing, or as a way to help them think of what to write next. And so that's kind of the audience I'm picturing when I make my content, but they're hard to reach. It's hard to just reach artists as like a general category. You know, they tend to just stumble onto stuff and then binge it. And you kind of hope that you get your hooks in and they come back to your thing as their binge. Yes, I think I'm realizing that every time I've come to this park, I've been like going to the bathroom in the woods. And I think there's actually a bathroom here. I'm just realizing it. Even though I've passed by this building a few times, I'm only just now noticing the men and women signs on it. So I guess I'm gonna pocket you all, or I'm gonna put you in the purse for a bit on mute while I go into the bathroom. Welcome back from the bathroom. Smells in here? Well, probably smells like nails or screws, because this bag was just sitting in my room full of screws up until I emptied it out to use it today. Nature is the most liberating bathroom. I probably wouldn't have been, you know, I would have felt a little more anxious about the bathroom there if there had been literally anyone around. Shelter number 5, beverages permitted. What if beverages were not permitted? They're just like, you can't bring a fucking drink to this, whatever you would call it, a pagoda, I guess. Oh wow, I almost never come through this way. Like from this direction. You never understand people paying for rants that are only interesting to them, that they don't think I would, you don't think I would know about. Well, I kind of do allow people to screen their ideas by just asking in the chat, like, hey, have you heard of this thing? So I could be like, no, I've never heard of that thing, don't pay me to rant about that. I will not know what you're talking about. But I mean, the main point of sending the money is to support the show. It's not about necessarily getting the most interesting rant. It's more like, what do I got? What do I got on me to send in, And at the very least, in an archival sense, it does like let the world know that I don't have an opinion on that thing, Like, at the very least, it will provide an answer to, you'll never have a lingering question on your mind of whether I know that thing exists. Lapusha with Australian $2. Is Chris Tyson good? See, that's a great example of I have no idea what you're talking about. Chris Tyson? I don't even know. I don't know if you did that as a joke to be like, here's something you definitely won't know, but it's just for support. But I have no idea what Chris Tyson is. Not even a name I've seen before, spelled that way. Unless it's like Tyson, like the brand, like the chicken brand, like the frozen chicken. When I think Tyson, that's what I think of. Or Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson, Iron Mike. Now, here's a little story that I think you'll like. It's not about Shaq or Iron Mike. So buckle your seatbelts, it's gonna get choppy. Listen to the tale of the time I fought Rocky. If I knew any more of that song off the top of my head, I would keep telling it. Chris Tyson is Mr. Beast's best friend who came out as trans. Oh, yeah, she's cool. She's awesome. She's always just in the videos looking cute. So, I don't know anything about her personality, or I don't follow her on any social media or anything like that. So I don't know what she's about besides being in Mr. Beast videos. But to me, it's pretty important that there is open trans representation in the most popular YouTube videos on the platform. As far as I'm concerned, that's the biggest culture war victory I could ask for. I've heard people say that they edit around her in certain countries or something like that. I don't know if that's true. I don't care if it's true. I only really care about the United States anyways, because it affects me directly. But, I consider it a big culture war victory to have trans representation in the biggest YouTube channel, especially one that's watched by children. So, if any kids who grow up knowing about Mr. Beast's trans friend, probably more likely to understand and accept the concept through life. Loud ass motorcycle. It's like reverse Sneeko for the kids. I don't know anything about Sneeko, but Gary always at $2. If all your Sonas fought, who would win? My money is on the Dervish. Yeah, of course. Artso Fartso would destroy everybody. Artso Fartso is the definition of the phrase goblin mode. I don't even know if Artso Fartso still exists. I have no idea. As far as I know, Artso Fartso is an ethereal idea that could maybe manifest in somebody else at some point, I think Artso Fartso might go beyond my physical vessel. I think it might be. I thought that about Digibro at a time, but the attempt to pass the soul of Digibro into someone else's body killed it. The attempt to move that soul, the soul started to dwindle, and it was going to perish. So I just decided it would be better to use it as a sacrifice to give myself witch powers. I didn't want to see it just crumble to dust, but I'd already taken it out of my body, so it didn't have any time left, So I just kind of, like in Metal Gear Rising, when you pull out the spine and you break it and you get all the juice. I did that to Digibro's soul. But Artso Fartso's soul is too large to perceive. You know, it's like Free Ren when her mana's unchecked, where you don't, or not Free Ren, but the elf girl who's like the queen of magic. Like when she has her power unchecked, it's so big you can't even perceive that you're standing inside of it, type shit. That's Artso Fartso. Queermo is strong, but Queermo is a normal person. Queermo is just a good old gay southern boy who, you know, likes him some JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Moon Knight. I think that's all I've used Queermo for, right? Is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Moon Knight. And then you've got probably the most easily conquerable would have to be the literal thinker. The literal thinker actually, I think in his second appearance in a mint salad video, got knocked out and dragged off into the woods for a plot line that never concluded. So, you know, as far as we know, literal thinker is actually just dead, or is like Rip Van Winkle in a shed somewhere, like waiting to arise and be mad at pop culture again. But yeah, so you got Queermo, you got the literal thinker, you got Artso Fartso, you know, you got Digibro, you got what other characters do I have? Butt-Nast Albatrass, you know, Black Rose, Rosetta Blackwood, otherwise known as Acid Girl. Acid Girl is pretty powerful, but I mean, the Golden Witch, like besides Artso Fartso, who is beyond me, the Golden Witch is the most powerful of Sona's within my body. You know, like of people that actually I am, holistically, the Golden Witch is the most powerful. Golden Witch could defeat anybody except for Artso Fartso, but Artso Fartso's not mine to lay claim to, you know. Hentai Samurai, of course. Hentai Samurai is very powerful. Very, very powerful. Hentai Samurai has had to slay a lot of cock demons in his day. So, you know, Hentai Samurai went back to Japan, so probably not going to see him ever again, but, you know, I assume that him and Kunoichi Cum Slut, his wife, are having a great time somewhere out in Japan. Critical Drinker has a movie coming out and everyone already hates it. Why do they always feel the need to do this? Like, every movie critic is a temporarily embarrassed movie maker, I guess. The skill sets don't translate. It's not the same thing. Like, reviewing movies and making movies are not the same. Look, AVGN knew how to make movies. He just got in over his head by trying to make the wrong kind of movie, I think. But it's just not. I don't understand how people think that their skill set in making stuff for the internet is going to then translate to making stuff IRL without like practice or, you know, like making other shit first. Like, maybe make a likable short film to prove you can do it and then make a movie, you know. Measurement Man. I guess I didn't think of that as a Sona of mine because that's a script Victor wrote. Like, I didn't invent Measurement Man. It's just a character that you know, that Victor came up with for his superhero universe. Victor had this. He really wanted to build like a series of what he called like local superheroes, where it's just like incredibly low-level, dumbass superheroes, and have like this whole, you know, interconnected comic book narrative around them, but we just never really figured out what to do with that beyond Measurement Man. There's like a character called Sir Kills-A-Lot. Oh, I do have a Sona called Dick Shit Island. Not a lot of people know about that. I only used it for a few photographs where I just labeled. It was because Victor we did this like photo shoot where Marcus was dressed as one sort of character, and then Victor was Sir Kills-A-Lot, and I basically wore the most clusterpunk outfit I could come up with, just the most hideous, garish thing I could, and it was a character called Dick Shit Island. Oh yeah, Fat YouTube Guy! Fat YouTube guy, that's another Victor creation from fucking fuck, what was that called? Shit! Movie News Weekly. Yes. Movie News Weekly. I don't think we ever released a second one of those, did we? I think we filmed a number 2, but I don't think Victor ever edited it. Maybe we did. I don't remember if there's 1 or 2 Movie News Weekly out, but I think it's only the 1. Yeah, Fat YouTube guy was a good role for me at the time. Trying to think if there's other. I mean, obviously Digibrony and Discorded Digibrony both count as their own sonas. What else have I got? A thing where me and my brothers were cannibals? Probably in a Project Awesomeness sketch. Because I know there's one where just the joke is that we're just like, oh, we're cannibals. Or it's like we're talking, we invite a friend over for dinner, and then like the conversation gradually reveals that like they are the dinner, you know? And we pretend to eat them. That's the only thing I can think of that would be maybe what you're thinking of. It's from like early Project Awesomeness. We're talking deep cuts here, people. I don't know who the fuck is remembering all this shit. Big Dig, of course. Big Dig. I had to private those albums because they're just a little too offensive. But you know, Big Dig did make some appearances in the Royal Rumble. Nobody liked it. Everybody else at the PCP was like, "What the fuck is this? This is not a real character." And I'm like, "I'm telling you, dog. I made the Big Dig. He's got a whole album. Got 2 whole albums." But that's deep lore. My sword is unbelievably dull. Yeah, I wouldn't call that like a persona though. It's just a blog. But so I did all my blogging under the, you know, the 21st Century Digital Boy handle, the full name. Except for, if you do want to count a sona, actually, Se Dice Bisonte, which is the name under which I did manga scanslation work and had a manga blog. And eventually I rolled all the posts from that manga blog onto my Sword is Unbelievably Dull, because I just didn't keep up with it long enough to keep, you know, as an active project. But yeah, if you go to isthatyoumotiliata.wordpress.com, under the name Se Dice Bisonte, I did some manga writing and some very minor scanslation work. But you can read my proofing in the first chapter of Excel World, anywhere on the internet. Anywhere you can find Excel World. When he says, fuck all those times, I did that. I made him say fuck all those times. At the contention of other people in the group. But I stood my ground and I was like, nah, they gotta say these words. I think that's the only like time I blogged under a totally different persona. I had a bunch of blogs, but I don't think they were like persona different. Se Dice Bisonte was kind of like practice for what eventually became Digibrony in a way, because like my internet writing style had always been, as is my personality, really hot-blooded, really intense, full of swearing and stuff, and I kind of wanted to get away from that image. So when I started writing about manga, I just created a new identity so that I could be like more of a classy, like, you know, just not really a hot-headed, but more of like a, let's sit down for a nice cup of tea and some manga, you know, type of a personality. But it's hard for me to keep up any kind of act that's not that, you know, not that core to me for long. You know, if I've got a wacky character, like I can use it in places, but I can't just like be in character all the time if the character is not that interesting, you know. But with Digibrony, like initially I was also taking the approach of like, I don't want this to be edgy or like, because I figured kids would inevitably see it. Like, it's about My Little Pony. Little kids are going to see these videos. I don't want them to, you know, be scared off basically by hearing a bunch of fuck words and like their parents get mad at them or something. But then like a year into doing it, I decided I did want to scare all those people off because I was really tired of getting comments from fucking children. So I was like, my character now smokes and swears all the time. And, you know, it was the best career move I ever made, actually. It really showed me that you should not try to get everybody. You should try to get the people who are going to really understand and care the most. And I've pretty much followed that ever since. The Pusha with Australian $2. Rant about BGE channel coming back. Hey, big congrats. Best guy ever. You know, his whole, basically all of his channels have been wiped off. I guess because his Talking Pirates show had, which I guess it's just like panels from the One Piece manga. I don't know if One Piece is at just that level of popularity that even the manga is getting like heavily policed for copyright on YouTube. But it was like a sweep. And I know what that's like because, to return to Digibrony, when I first started doing YouTube videos, my original pony videos looked just like my anime content, where it's just footage of the show and me talking over it. Like, frankly, I wouldn't have gotten into this job if I thought I had to do more than that. I would not have become a career YouTuber analyst if I thought that it was going to involve, you know, considerably more work than just putting the footage on screen over me talking about it. Now, granted, I had ambitions of becoming an animator and animating my character the same way Egoraptor does in Sequelitis. So that was originally my plan. I literally bought a drawing tablet with one of my first paychecks from Target and drew maybe 5 times before I realized I fucking hate drawing for the most part, especially on a tablet at the time. I've gotten more into drawing over time, but I really was not having it back then. And so like initially my videos were just footage of the show, me talking. I had made like 8 videos or something like that. My channel was just starting to get a little bit of attention, and then they all got flagged at the same time. But luckily, at the time, the copyright system wasn't the same as it is today, and it didn't lead to like a whole channel takedown or anything like that. But I have had my channel go down several times for getting like 2 strikes at once. And like the first time my channel fully went down, actually the first 2 times my channel fully went down, both times the only reason that it came back is that I had filed an appeal on like the first strike right before the other 2 came. So like, if not for the fact that that appeal went through after like 2 weeks of me just sitting there not being sure what was going to happen, thinking I had lost my channel, you know, the appeal goes through and suddenly the channel is back. And so like the second time it happened to me, I was kind of relying on that same like, oh god, well, at least I know last time that after 2 weeks it came back. It happened again. And I think there was a third time my channel got taken down, and I just like campaigned, you know, to get like the company to take off one of the strikes or something like that. So I think that was after Girlish Number. I remember my channel going down after the Girlish Number video. It's been down a few times, and it sucks. You really don't know if like you're ever gonna get it back. Like, you never hear anything from YouTube. It doesn't seem like anybody's working on it, you know? Like, it's just kind of a thing where you have to keep making noise until finally somebody deigns to give you a listen, you know, at the level that they can do something. And it's pretty fucked how easy it is for companies to fuck you over fraudulently, and just ruin your whole career, your whole livelihood. If that is, like, I think Nate has a job outside of YouTube, so it probably wasn't like life ruining, but you know, it's like, am I gonna keep doing this? Like, Demolition D quit, you know, he quit way back in 2015 or whatever because you know, his channel got taken down a 3rd time, and he just went, this is not viable. And he became a Twitch streamer, you know. And I feel like something similar is happening to me, except that I don't like to, you know, sit around on Discord and play video games or whatever and stream that. I like to walk around the great outdoors and talk to chat. So yeah, congratulations to Best Guy Ever getting all his stuff back. Um, oh, it's so nice out. My right arm is starting to get tired though, so I can swamp off. I've been going for 100 minutes. It doesn't feel that long. That's the other nice thing about this as a job is that time really flies when I'm doing this. When I do these streams, just speaking unbroken and wandering aimlessly. I never feel like as much time has passed as has, but I'll come away like, oh, I just made a bunch of money and got a good workout, so my day is automatically good now. So it's probably the most, I think that's why I'm so into it actually, is just that it might actually be the most fun I've had making content in a long time. I like making content, but when I make content and it doesn't succeed, I just deflate. Like, it makes me not want to do it, And I know I have to push through that to accomplish anything, but when it's like years, of just, all right, well, I'm still putting the same amount of effort into it as ever, and nobody cares, so maybe this just isn't something that's going to work. And like, there's a part of me that's always thinking like, yeah, but all it would take is one breakthrough to justify all of this back catalog. Then there's another part of me that's like, yeah, but what if you switched gears and you were creating your new catalog that was going to matter, and none of this old shit will even be remembered? It's always hard to say. But as I do these live streams, one thing speaks louder than any other voice in my head. And it's the money! Here comes the money! Right, I was talking earlier about visualizing the stream space. How there are certain people who come off like they think it's just me and you. Like, it's just me in the forest, you on your phone. And then other people are kind of reading the chat and treating it like we're all here. And like, obviously for me, that's a part of it, where I kind of, to me, it's like we're all in a room in my head, and like I look around and there's Gary Always, and there's, Bad Lula, and there's Daniel McLinden, and there's the Mr. Grafixable over there, and as I speak, it's not quite like a conversation because you can't interrupt me. Like, you can give a suggestion of an interruption, and then I kind of decide if I'm going to interrupt myself and address that suggestion at all. But I also kind of view it as speaking amongst yourselves, where like, I figure you're not just talking to me, you're talking to everybody else in the chat. But again, different people treat it differently. Some people are talking to the chat like they're just talking to me. Some people are talking to the chat and not to me at all. And then there's people who are trying to keep the conversation as though we're all somehow a part of it, And it's just fascinating to me when I see those different, because I have to kind of approach each person differently. Where like, if I'm talking to somebody who is regularly at the live streams, and like, I know that they know who else is there, right? Like, if Gary Always is here, who I like, respond to a lot, and like, not just, he sends super chats, he sends other stuff that I've said the name. So if you're somebody who comes to a lot of the live streams and you see Gary Always, you're almost certainly going to be like, oh, Gary's here, not like, but like, if somebody comes in who doesn't know who anybody is, who's never been to one of the live streams before, then it probably feels like none of these people exist at all, like they're not real, you have no concept of them. So I really wonder, like, what category do you put yourself in? Do you find that you feel more like it's just you and me? How cognizant are you of other people in the chat? Do you know any, like, do you know them from places other than the chat also? Like, because, I know Gary from Twitter. I know Sarah Louise from in person and Making Gay and Dead, and, back in the Brony days when we first became friends. Like, I know certain people in the chat. Some people I just, like Mr. Grafixable, I know as a commenter, like a person who is in the chat, but has been around for a long time. It's a name I recognize. But then there's other people who will come in and it's like, okay, I've seen the name Dickington Post. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have an immediate connection in my mind of what you do, but I know I've seen your name, so I'm sure you are at the very least a chat commenter, maybe also a channel commenter, you know? But like, but how does anybody else recognize the name Dickington Post when I say it? Are you like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember hearing that name or reading their comments, or are you just like, no idea? Never knew that was a person that you knew about until just now. Dunbar's number is such bullshit, by the way. Like, my count is so much higher than any supposition I've heard. I know they raised it, like they said, oh, well, it was originally 124. Now we're thinking it's closer to like 200, 300 or something. No. I'm sure there are thousands of people in my head that I am at least very vaguely keeping track of. And most of them are not even known to one another, probably wouldn't expect me to know who they are at all in any context, but I do try to keep track of everything as best I can. I'm only cognizant of myself, my stream of consciousness, responses to text, video, and anything else I see. Ellen says, hi Gary. Ellen Horai, also great example of a person who, like, to anybody else who's heard me speaking to Ellen in the chat might just think, ah, a chatter. But Ellen is the moderator of the We Watch Anime Discord. The admin, I guess. The only person besides me and Bird who has any power in the We Watch Anime Discord. So, you know, and it creates a sense where, like, people who don't know these kinds of things or aren't paying attention might see me read chats from Ellen and be like, well, how come she gets responses without paying and other people don't? And it's like, well, because she, for free, is the moderator of my Discord, so she gets infinite rant requests. You know, like, that's my inner circle. That's my crew, you know. Anybody who's at the crew level, you know, they got special permissions. You know, I'm pretty sure Riley's a moderator, and Mint, actually. I think they might have mod privileges in my chat. Obviously Bird does. So, you know, to me, it's a whole ecosystem. It's a whole environment. You know, I'm always very cognizant of who is in the chat, what are they about, where do I know them from, you know, what's their deal, and I'm kind of speaking with that audience in mind, where it's like, you know, if I know I've got some of my trans listeners in the chat, I'm going to talk more about trans issues. If I know I've got some of my anime fans in the chat, you know, I'm going to talk more about anime kind of thing. If I know there's a bunch of trolls in the chat, I get really, like, you know, I really ride on the energy and start getting all mean, you know? So it's definitely reactive on my end. But again, I don't know how much anybody else perceives what is really going on when they're watching the live streams on that level, you know? Anyway, if you want me to rant about anything, send along them super chats. I'm running out of ideas and out of breath. But I want to go as long as I make money. And usually the answer is as long as possible. So you never know when somebody new is going to show up with a burning question, fucking scoring a hole in their pocket. A money-shaped hole, that is. I do make ad revenue from the streams. Although, I have a habit of saying the fuck word within the first couple seconds of videos. So there have been a lot of limited monetizations or demonetized streams. But yeah, I think they all get, like, packed with extra ad breaks once they're uploaded too. Gary Always with $2. Rant about the Horseshoe Saga, especially finale. Oh man, you're taking me back. What is this, a nostalgia trip? Horseshoe Saga was Endless Jess's big video series about My Little Pony. Basically, the conceit of it, and you understand all of this when you watch Horseshoe Finale, he basically explains what the series is in the finale. But the concept was that he had spent 2 years toiling away at trying to become a successful YouTuber through, you know, that with the, basically posting on That Guy with the Glasses forums and, like, just trying to get people to pay attention to his content. His content was really fucking good. Back when he was just drowning in footwear. You know, the Endless Jest channel still has all the content he's left up. But like, you know, he had a ton of stuff he'd released over the course of 2 years as drowning in footwear, and he hadn't seen a lot of success. And then when I started doing the My Little Pony analysis videos, he was like the first person to notice my channel growing. And particularly when I passed his sub count, he was kind of like, hey, how are you doing that? You know, like, how do we... And so, you know, I started talking to him and stuff. We weren't immediately like friends or anything, but eventually I started making the, you know, the Brony analysis sector on Equestria Daily. And as that was growing and like just Brony analysis was becoming categorically a big thing that like lots of people were doing, Jesse was like, well, I could do this better than any of the fucking people doing it, you know? Like, he was like, I definitely could do better analysis of this goddamn show. And he had made a couple of videos about My Little Pony. Like, he was into the fandom in like kind of a tertiary way. But, you know, just seeing the opportunity of like, hey, everybody's doing analysis of this show, it's succeeding, and I could do it better, I'm going to do that. So we started up the analysis series, and essentially it's like, it started off more straightforward, where he was just kind of like trying to be better at reviewing the show and also funnier. But he quickly ran into the issue of the Brony fandom is overwhelmingly autistic, and overwhelmingly did not understand his sense of humor, or was even able to parse some of the deeper parts of his analysis, and we get fixated on just like the, you know, small details of stuff he was saying. And it just created this I think tension where he went like, okay, I'm going to make this into an art piece now, you know, like I'm going to, instead of just doing this as like a, you know, a throwaway, oh, this is easy, so I'm going to dunk on everybody, I'm actually going to show everybody how good it could be and really flex and be, you know, the greatest who's ever done it, basically. And so he told this story that basically is a retelling of the 2 years of his life beforehand. Like the first 2 years of his career, sort of he basically parodied the experience he had had of being a YouTuber unsuccessfully in this new series, which was more successful than the original run, you know? So it was kind of like redoing it, but this time with an audience. And then when he finally got to the finale, that's when he kind of explains it all, lays out what was going on, and it ends up being this incredibly emotional, like, journey that you go on across the series, because it's just good storytelling, you know? Like, it's disguised as being a series of reviews about a show, but it's really a character study into what it's like to be a no-name YouTuber losing your fucking mind in a basement, you know, trying to deal with the fans, trying to deal with the culture, trying to deal with YouTube itself, like just everything that he had dealt with, you know, emotionally all got written into this My Little Pony review series. So, you know, at the time it was incredibly epic. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, because nobody was trying to do that kind of, like, nobody was trying to make epic content on YouTube yet. It was just not seen as something viable. It used to be that a 20-minute video was considered massive. Like, Sequelitis on Mega Man X was like the longest analysis video I'd ever fucking seen for a long time, you know? Mr. Plinkett Star Wars review also did a huge part to push this forward, but that took a while before it really, you know, became culturally known. Like, I found out about it through other people in the Brony community, you know, telling me about it. And eventually, you know, YMS was directly inspired by Plinkett. I was directly inspired by Plinkett and YMS to start making these longer form analytical things. And, you know, I think Jesse and I were the first, like, part of that first wave of, like, well, I guess we wouldn't be the first wave, we'd be the second wave, right? The first wave would be Plinkett. So we would be the second wave of people, like, really pushing to make long form analytical content a thing. And I think that the third wave that finally made it mainstream is like Mahler, the whole every frame of pause crowd. You know, people just deciding, actually, videos are going to be 7 hours long, you know, and I'm going to go into every little meticulous detail. And, you know, since then, particularly in the gaming sphere, where I think video games have always deserved this. Like, video games have always deserved to have hours and hours of analysis because there's so much in them and so much difference in the experience for different players that, like, yeah, it deserves to be broken down on that level. But, you know, I'm glad we've culturally arrived at the long-form content paradigm. All right, I'm done with this rant. Somebody else, please pay me to talk about something. That was way longer than I intended to go on for a mere $2. But, you know, I can't help myself sometimes. Sometimes I'm just like chilling. I'm just cooling. I'm just, what the hell? What does it say? Where are you? Are you here right now? Stop, be here right now. I am. How can I more so be? Can I be more here right now? There's a plane overhead. There's a guy running. There's a kid in the field. There's chalk and colorful things. There's a playground. There's a skate park. I feel I am here. I feel the heat. I feel the sweat. I've got the sun beaming down on me. I can feel the run of my deodorant. I can feel the drips from my brow roll down the sides of my face. I got shoes on. Shadow Priest with $5. What's Jess been up to? I subbed to his Patreon for a bit, but never heard much about how his life was going. Is he still an inspirational center to you? I haven't talked to him in at least a year, so I have no idea what's going on with him. As for being inspirational, I mean, his inspiration is deeply welled. You know, like, he's a pretty... At this point, it's hard for me to even say, like, particularly as a rapper, right? Like, the song The Coolest Guy, I memorized that song. I love that song. It's one of the songs that I can cipher off my brain. So if I made a list of like 100 rap songs that are like how I got how to learn to rap, you know, like that would be in there. So that influence is there. If I had to make a list of, you know, 100 YouTube videos that I tried to copy the style of, a few Endless Jest videos would be in there, you know? So if anything, I would say for a long time he was too much of an influence on me because I was trying too hard to be him and failing. Like I really just, I wanted to have the same, I wanted other people to get the same feelings watching my videos that they got from watching his video, or that I got from watching his videos. And I think I did somewhat accomplish that, but it never happened to me. Like, I never got the effect for myself that I got watching his. Maybe that's impossible. You know, maybe I could never inspire those same feelings in myself, but like for a long time it was like an obsession of mine that like I can't let myself be the number 2 greatest analyst that I know of, you know. Now granted, now we're living in a world where there's so much analysis and so much of it is good that I don't even think that that conversation is relevant anymore, you know, of like whether or not me and Jesse were like literally the greatest to ever do it. Like, tons of people are doing it now. Tons of people are doing it well. You know, so I'm just happy to be in a place where I can take influence from everywhere. You know, I could throw a rock and hit somebody who's going to be influential on my next writing. So it's pretty nice. Mimicking other creators, something every creator struggles with, at least early in their careers. I think you kind of have to start, but it's just about continuing to like take in new ideas, because I think a lot of people get hung up on their taste, where like they see something when they're young, they love that thing, they're obsessed with that thing, and they want to replicate that thing going forward, and like they just never, like they reject everything else that's not like that thing, and so they become so fixated on it. And like sometimes that can be, I know there are some writers out there, or, you know, artists who were so obsessed with another artist's work that they were able to replicate it to the level of just taking it over. You know, like if you literally are trying to be the next that person, that can be possible if you have the skills to be as good as them, and, you know, other people to recognize that. But yeah, for the most part, like, most people just kind of get like a generic conception of what's cool in their head, and they keep trying to replicate that over and over, and they never grow it. They never, you know, again, they reject new ideas of what's cool. And I think at the time that I was really into, you know, that Jesse was a big influence on me, like, that would be an example where I just thought it was like his content was so much better than everybody else's, that's the only person really worth comparing myself to, you know, where it's like, you know, I just think I think it doesn't take much for me to be better than most other creators in the sphere, but it would take a lot for me to be better than him, you know? And so that's kind of where that obsession was driven from. But now, again, like, there's so many people doing such different stuff. It's like, well, I wouldn't want to try to be better than all of these people. I would rather incorporate what's good about all of them into being, you know, the best version of myself. Will I ever think that my content is better than Jesse's was? I don't know, but that's not really the point. And it's certainly not the point for the audience, you know, like, it doesn't contribute anything to you, especially if I get hung up in my head for, let's say, a month trying to come up with like the cool, like, oh, I have to make a classic video or else I can't post, you know, and then like get obsessed with it. Like, everyone's like, just make a live stream. I just want to hear your voice. I just want to hear you talk about shit, you know. It doesn't have to be all that serious. But, you know, I care more about the life work than I do about any individual work, because I don't think you can create something that you're not going to look back on and see the flaws and see, you know, and consider how you could have done it better or do something else that is better. Like, you know, you have to look at it like each thing you release is just part of your evolution, not a definitive piece in and of itself, you know. Necromancer with $2. Objectivity doesn't exist. Sounds objective. Help. Well, the original video is called Objectively Good Doesn't Exist. So and that is an objective statement within the paradigm that objectivity does exist. You cannot objectively prove something to be good, because the concept of good is 100% perspective driven. It's just it's a concept nobody agrees on and nobody can define, you know. So you cannot call something objectively good. Now, does objectivity exist at all? If I said objectivity doesn't exist, yeah, that would be an objective statement, and self-contradictory. But I also think that the contradictory nature of it is kind of necessary. Like, this kind of gets into that whole Taoist shit I was talking about the other day, about how, like, the existence of something must necessitate the existence of nothing. Like, how can you delineate between, you know, how can you delineate between a something and some things without there being a nothing between them? You know, like, there has to be, I know I'm touching air particles, but there is an amount of space between at the most microscopic level, between the actual particles of air and my, you know, the ones that comprise me, which are themselves changing all the time. So it's more like a loose collection of cells that have a sort of unified conception of what they're doing, I guess. I don't know. I'm getting way too fucking heady with this answer to this stupid question. Oh no, it's Jujutsu Kaisen now. Yeah, that's what it feels like when I start trying to explain reality. I only know that I know nothing. Indeed. Or as Hanekawa would say, I don't know everything, I just know what I know. We're at the 2-hour mark. We've made a clean 42.76. It's a comfortable $20 an hour, although YouTube takes a big cut of that, so we'll say it's more like probably $30 to $35 total, so like $15 to $20 an hour. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. That's a decent lifestyle. But if the super chats don't start coming in again, I'm just gonna close the fucking stream off, cause I got shit to do. No, I don't. I'm lying. I will just stream again. If I cut this stream off, it's because I'm gonna go eat and then I'm gonna stream again. But I don't know yet if Bird's working a double shift today. He might be, and if he is, I will probably be streaming for most of the afternoon. Because the afternoon is where more people usually watch. I stream in the mornings because I wake up so fucking early. And I just feel like I'm sitting around waiting until it's like late enough that I can start streaming and anybody will be watching. But, you know, again, it's really only the mid-afternoon that people are like super online. I've seen like a lot of shows try to not compete with each other. They're like, all right, we'll pick different days, we'll pick different times a day. But like, if you're on the realm of daily streaming, you're competing with every other daily streamer because there's only like 4 hours of like peak time, and we're all trying to get it. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, I'm in direct competition, even with my friends like Mint Salad. But I don't expect the audiences to be the same because the content style is different. You know, her content is spending time with Mint and her boobs. My content is an endless drone of nonsense and buck teeth. I'm not only competing with streamers, but every form of media entertainment. Well, yeah, that's true. I don't know how many forms of media entertainment are popular right now. I feel like nobody gives a shit about anything at the moment. What is popular? Anything? Does anyone like anything right now? I mean, I know you all like streaming because you're watching it. So I can at least check off the box that people are watching live streams, but I don't know what else people are doing. I know they're listening to Kendrick Lamar, so that's cool. It's nice to feel kinship with a majority of culture in that we're all listening to the same song, and not just that, but a Kendrick Lamar song at that. I feel like only millennials like things Zoomers don't seem to care about shit. I don't know. I think it's maybe just the shorts. You know, that like if you're always just kind of microdosing intrigue, it's hard for any one thing to really stand out. You know, like if you're an anime fan, it's kind of like you really sort out what you're watching, right? Like you try to be watching stuff that you care about and that you would want to talk about and be like, yeah, I've been watching fucking this and it's interesting. But when you're just like watching shorts all the time, it's like you can show them to people directly. You can be like, watch this funny short. But like when trying to recollect like a specific, what do you watch? Well, I watch a lot of cows. I know a few celebrity cows. But I don't know. Everybody, let me know. Let me know what you do, what you like, what you eat. I'm basically a human SEO bot. I've always kind of been this way. I want big data because you know, big data helps with decision making, and particularly from my audience, I'm always very curious. Like, I guess I figure that anybody who listens to me talk must necessarily be categorically closer to the way I think than they are to how almost anybody else thinks. So all the similarities and differences are intriguing to me. It's like, how close are we to being the same person, you know? Give me all of your, list everything you care about right now. And let's see if we're the same. I tell people they are wrong on Twitter and work on tabletop games all day. Okay. Tabletop does still seem to be a very thriving scene. I wish I was more into tabletop. I've never found a game I've clicked with, really. I don't know what kind of game I would click with. I've played tabletop games. You know, I've played them with friends. I've played them with family. But, you know, both American style and, like, well, I meant, well, what's the phrase they use? Like Ameritrash or whatever for like the shitty board games, you know? And then there's like, I guess the distinction now everybody makes board and tabletop, right? A board game. Play it with your board family. tabletop RPG. Oh, gather your squad, you know. Bird's twin brother is super into tabletop games. And so, you know, I'd like to get into them just to have something to talk to that guy about. And my brother Shade plays D&D. I don't know if he's still doing it, but he had a D&D group for a long time. But I don't know. I struggle to want to be in one place for, you know, hours on end doing one thing unless I'm super engaged with it. So I would really need a tabletop game that I'm like, this is the one. This is the one that I can play all the time, you know. I haven't even found a video game like that though. So and I've played hundreds of video games, maybe even thousands of video games, and I still have not found one that's like a go-to, just matter of course, I'm gonna do this thing today, you know. Closest I ever came was Terra Online. Playing Terra Online for like a month and a half was the longest I ever got addicted to one game. And it was just kind of like, I felt like I'd done everything, so it was just not fun to play anymore. Bird has a twin love triangle? That's gross. Stop, that's disgusting. Don't do that. His twin also has a partner. You know, is also his brother, so that would be incredibly fucking weird. Anime's not real. Necromancer with $2. Thank you very much. Do you think Jujutsu Kaisen is badly written, Pog? No, not at all. I think that the way it's written is not going to be accessible to everybody, and that it's kind of amazing that a show with such like odd writing is as popular as it is. But no, I think it accomplishes what it's trying to do extremely well. I'm going to talk about this a lot in my next video. The Jujutsu Kaisen versus Evangelion storytelling spirals video is about the difference of basically proposing that there are 3 general ways a story can be told, which are either a circular fashion, or an inward spiral, or an outward spiral. And I'm going to make the case that Jujutsu Kaisen is an outward spiral, and Evangelion is an inward spiral. So they kind of are inverse storytelling styles. But I do think outward spiral storytelling, and I would put Gurren Lagann as an obvious example, and I talk about that too, but One Piece is more so similar to Jujutsu Kaisen in the sense that it's this ridiculously massive story that every time you learn something new, it changes your perception of everything else that's happened so far. And I think that's the real magic of Jujutsu Kaisen, is that it takes a while before you get to these revelations because there's a lot of logic that has to be parsed through for why it's happening. But then when something happens, it has ramifications that go back through the whole story, you know? So that's what makes it good, in spite of being kind of, you know, clumsily written and hard to follow. I just think it's hard to fucking parse. Like, to me, Jujutsu Kaisen is like, it requires thought. It requires paying attention. It requires consideration. Usually when those things are true about a show, we call that good writing. But when it's a popular show, people just assume that everyone's dumb and isn't thinking about it, just enjoying the flashy lights. But I assure you, Jujutsu Kaisen fans like it because it is complicated. Gary always for $2. When things that seem niche become mega popular. Well, and it's I think it's really hard to hit the sweet spot, but like any anime that becomes popular, that is what it is. Like anime is all niche. It's all inherently niche. Animation is just a niche style of work because, and I really think that the only reason that this is the case is that most people are looking for a semblance of reality in the work that they consume, and they struggle to find that through the abstraction of illustration. Case in point, my dad. My dad, he loves nonfiction. He reads a lot of nonfiction. He watches a lot of, he watches a lot of the news. He watches a lot of, which, I would contend about the non-fictional nature of, but, he watches a lot of stuff that purports to be real. He likes movies and shows that are based on true events. He just wants it to be as close to reality as possible so that it gives him something to think about in reality. He doesn't like to think about fantastical ideas that don't mean anything in reality because there's no application. There's nothing he can do to understand the world better. Now, there is, but it just requires more thought, and he doesn't want to do that. It's kind of a waste of fucking time, you know? A lot of people are looking for the abstraction because they want to get further away from reality. They want something that feels real enough to relate to, but takes them far enough from reality that they're not thinking about real life anymore. They're thinking about this cool fantasy world. So I think that anime, in that sense, is inherently dissociative media. It's for people who want to get further from reality. And a big part of my difficulty relating to non-animated media for a long time was that I didn't see enough of myself in reality. I just didn't relate to characters, you know, and like part of it was seeing myself as categorically not a woman, and so therefore discounting all women as someone I could relate to, and then never seeing a guy that reminded me of myself, you know, just like, and therefore all of it's wash. And then I watch anime and it's just far enough away that I'm not thinking about it on that level, you know. But when I analyze it and when I break down what I'm actually coming to it for, it's all identity, self-reification type shit, you know. Something that makes me feel like myself, but in a cooler context, or even just more soothing, you know. Like when I was in high school watching Hidamari's sketch, it's like, Yuno is me, Yuno is the way I feel, but what if I was surrounded by 3 great friends, all of whom I could also relate to and thought were cool, you know? Like that's the appeal of Hidamari's sketch to me. So I think when an obscure thing like an anime gets really popular, it's because it's tapping into, like, how do I put it? Everybody who likes something niche is categorically in like a broader niche bubble, right? And I think that anything that's trying to appeal to that group, like, has the potential to hit really big with everybody who's in the niche category, or to go straight to like a further in part of it, you know? So for instance, like people who make like really weird fetish content, right? Like most of that's probably not going to make it to the whole of the niche sphere. It's going to make it to a smaller sphere inside of that sphere. But if you incorporate that fetishistic content into a story that is more relatable to more people, they might be more willing to look past that fetishistic aspect because they understand that it is for niche people. Like they understand like that aspect is here for the people who are at this part of the niche circle. And if it gets too extreme, that can be off-putting enough. And anime has a big problem with this, where people who are into alternative media in America want to like anime, but they don't want to be pedophiles, you know? So like that's been the big difficulty of making anime like a, you know, it's the goal is not to be mainstream. The goal is to be main niche. And I think Jujutsu Kaisen pulls off main niche. And it does that because, yes, it has a bunch of fetishistic specificity, but none of it is hypersexual. And none of it makes you feel like a pedophile. Huge deal for US audiences. You know, Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the least pedophilic anime I can think of. You know, it has almost no characters that are even high school aged, and the ones it has wear the most clothes they possibly could, you know, like there's not a ton of hot girls running around or anything like that. And the ones there are, they're all badasses who are just look cool. They're not even like sexualized that much, you know? And it's not even that there's no sexuality at all in the story, because that would also be unrelatable. It's just tame, you know? And I think, you know, something like Attack on Titan, I can say a lot of the same things about, where, you know, it probably appeals really strongly to vor fetishists, but it also isn't focused on that. Anyway, let me read what you guys are talking about. JJK is like Hero Aka plus da-da-da-da. Interesting, I could kind of see that. Am I up to date with One Piece? No. I never even made it through the whole introduction of Robin. Was the Spiral concept based on Gurren Lagann? No, it's more so based on the song Lateralis by Tool, which I also talk about in this video. but I do talk about Gurren Lagann in the video because it is an obvious example, but it's not the same type, because the difference between Jujutsu Kaisen and Gurren Lagann that I'm going to get into, and I'm just going to, in the simplest terms I can, but this is probably cryptic for most of you, Jujutsu Kaisen is a Fibonacci spiral. Gurren Lagann is a drill spiral. If you can figure out what that means without me having to explain it further, then that's fine. But otherwise, wait for the video. Lolly shit ruined Made in Abyss somewhat. That's exactly a great example of what I'm talking about, where that series, like, it started off, as a niche manga. It started becoming an anime, and when the anime started coming out, nobody was talking about it initially. And I remember watching the first couple episodes and being like, this has all of the reasons to be the sleeper hit anime that everybody's going to be talking about as like the classic, but it will never reach outside of anime fandom. It'll be popular with everyone who likes anime, but like, it's gonna be, because the limit, I guess, like how do I break this down? I'm trying to think of a gradient of how accepting you are of the sexual, or I won't even call it sexual, the nudity in Made in Abyss, the squick aspects, we'll call them. Like, the spectrum is like, you can find it pretty disturbing, but because you know anime, you're like willing to put up with it begrudgingly, or even just complaining about it openly while watching the show, or you're on the other end and it's like actively part of the appeal. But that's much smaller category, And I would say that, yeah, Made in Abyss, it basically cannot break the ceiling of being at least familiar enough with anime to be somewhat comfortable. It's not supposed to be comfortable also. The story is supposed to be uncomfortable. But just that aspect that people don't want to be confronted with. People don't want that discomfort. They're fine with the other discomfort in the show. They don't want that discomfort. And I think that limits it. Whereas, like, again, Attack on Titan, the types of discomfort that show portrays, people are fine with. It doesn't make them, feel like they're bad for watching it or immoral somehow because they saw a naked drawing. JJJ keeps upping the ante when Gurren Lagann stayed consistent. Yes, exactly. Kind of what I'm talking about. Well, in Gurren Lagann, it's kind of episode by episode. It's like every single episode has to be twice as big as the last one because it's like drill rungs, Jujutsu Kaisen, it's like each layer of the spiral is so much further around, before you get to the end of it. Nekomancer with $2. Speaking of lollies, will you watch the new Monogatari? Probably not. I didn't know there was a new Monogatari, but I have never seen past Hana Monogatari. I think it was the last one I saw. So I'm way behind. I've only seen like half of all the episodes that have actually been made of that show. Monogatari really just kind of lost intrigue for me, I think, after... How do I put it? When Monogatari series first came out, when there were like 7 episodes of the show out, I remember watching it and my overall takeaway being, I should like this more than I do because it looks so much like all the other stuff in its category that I like. Like it's the, Nisio Isin, he had also been an author who was published in Faust magazine early on, the same way Kodono Kohei was, who wrote Boogie Pop, what the fuck is his name? The guy who wrote Welcome to the NHK. Tatsuki Takimoto, something like that? Takimoto, I think is his name. A lot of people who I liked wrote in similar styles to him with similar types of characters. And the way he wrote Inner Monologue, I think, was the biggest part of it for me, where like it feels like the way I think. So that made it like, oh man, it feels like this guy's kind of inside my head. And I think a lot of late 2000s anime, that was kind of the revolution of the time, was bringing inner monologue to the forefront of storytelling. And light novels were the driving force of this, because so many light novels are written from a first person constant narrative perspective. And Nisi was just going really heavy on that, like going way deep into the character's thoughts, like mind tunneling, And so as somebody who myself is a mind tunneler, like there's an innate appeal to, wow, somebody's writing the way I think. And I think that's what made him so popular in the beginning. As time goes on, and those works are influential and more people write in that style, and I find my own voice as a writer in that same field, where I'm not feeling the sense of like trying to take something from it or trying to, learn how to write this way. Like, now I can only take it at exactly the face value of like, what are the actual words though, right? Like, forget the style, forget all the trappings, forget how the show looks and feels or whatever. What is it about? Is it actually interesting? And for me, the Monogatari series is like a little interesting. Like, there are aspects of the characters that are interesting. There's story beats that happen. There's aspects of the presentation that are interesting. But like, most of the fuck around, most of the just like characters talking to each other, making puns and like being goofy, I don't care. I could leave all of that. It doesn't mean it's not entertaining. It's just kind of silly, like it's incredibly self-indulgent. So, like I think that it's kind of like I'd rather just write my own, rather than go read or watch all of Monogatari. I'll just write my own Monogatari. I don't need somebody else's brainstorm in my head. I got my own. I got enough going on in there. I got enough of my own characters kicking around. I guess I would feel different if the Monogatari characters had like aged with me. Like if they grew up. I don't know. Maybe this does happen later. I again never made it more than halfway, but like, it's hard for me to imagine going back and trying to care about like a high school romance right now, like I'm too many lifetimes past that to like feel something about it anymore, I'll talk about NHK. Yeah, NHK was a hard hitter back in the day. Well, anybody else got any other super chat rant requests? If not, I'm going to end this stream and restart later in the afternoon when more people are awake and ready and home from work and got their wallets open, ready to send me all that super chat money. Hey, Sven Oswald with €5. You think those pedo vibes have purpose in Abyss? I was like, damn, that show is bonkers and I love it. What makes it weird is that it is unnecessary. Yeah, I think so personally, like I kind of said, I think Made in Abyss is supposed to be really uncomfortable. To me, those scenes are not meant to be like, you're not meant to be like, oh wow, look at her naked, I'm titillated or whatever. No, it's like, the first time it happens, she's like getting strung up and whipped. And I just don't think that scene would have had as much impact if not for, like, it was so, oh my gosh, like, so taken aback. But that is the severity of the situation. Like, the point of Made in Abyss to me is that everything about it is as dark as it could possibly be. It is the most grim ideas, the most fucked conceptions of human nature, and it's a study on greed. It's about the evil of, of just the endless desire we have to keep going in search of the unknown because we just need to know everything, and the offset to that is that the main character is a cute little girl with an endlessly bubbly personality, like, which kind of is the only, like, as the story goes on, you kind of think, well, nobody else could survive this situation. Like, nobody else could make it as far as somebody who is so determined that they will swallow all of it, and not let it affect their determination. And so I think there is an importance in showing that depth of vulnerability, that like her life is really rough, like she gets tied up naked and whipped. She gets like her arm fucking cut off, like, by the end of the, I think, first season. Like, it's a really harrowing and brutal show. It should make you uncomfortable. And so, again, that's why I kind of think it's weird when people are like, I want to pick and choose my discomfort, you know? Like, oh, well, this, I loved how dark and fucked up. I loved the plot line about all the abuse they were doing to the children. I just wish they didn't have to show them naked. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, so you'll watch them get tortured, but if they take their clothes off, you feel dirty. Like, I don't get it, you know? Like, it's all dirty. It's all gross. It's all meant to make you feel bad, you know? The fact that it's kind of cutesy is the medicine to make it go down. It's not meant to be, you know, and the characters are not sexualized. They're fucking planks. They look like nothing. They look like children, you know? They're not like posed sexily or something. They're fucking mud people, you know? Like they look like they're made of clay. So, I don't know. To me, the nudity in Made in Abyss never made it feel, it never felt like different from the rest of the package. You know, it didn't feel like it was neither necessary nor unnecessary. None of it was necessary. No story is necessary, but like the whole thing is just bleak shit. You know, that's the manga. Bleak shit in a really inventive context. But yeah, I guess that's my whole take on that. Anybody else got another rant before I wrap it up? Come back later. Anything you want to know right now while I'm in this headspace? I could be in a very different headspace later. You might get a very different answer. So, you know, maybe ask the question now and then ask the same question later and see if it's different. It might even be fun to get the same answer. Just be like, you know what? It was worth it just to reify the knowledge. You don't feel like the nudity is meant to make you feel uncomfortable? It definitely made me feel uncomfortable. I don't know how... I don't know, is that not the vibe you got from it? Like, I saw it and I went, you know, like, oh no! Madoka is hardly bleak. Yeah, not compared to Made in Abyss. It's definitely not as bleak as Made in Abyss. But it's the same category. They're trying to do the same thing. They're both like, let's tell a really dark story with really cute characters. With Madoka, I think, though, there was still a level on which they wanted it to appeal to Magical Girl fans. You know, like, they couldn't take it to a place where Magical Girl fans were going to, you know, say this is too far, necessarily, you know. Had to be just over the line. Just right over the line. Made in Abyss is way past the line. Made in Abyss is like, it's abyssal. It is the abyss. It is void gazing the manga. There's only a couple other manga I can think of that are like comparably dark. You know, like Berserk is darker in terms of showing more bad shit more frequently, but it also doesn't have, well, okay, the Eclipse conceptually will stick with you forever, but like Made in Abyss has stuff that just conceptually stays with you. You know, like all the stuff Bordred did is like, you'll remember that as an idea, because it really makes you think about the depth of what human experimentation can entail and how bad it can be, you know, like Madoka is too metaphysical, yeah, to have that same, it doesn't have the body horror. It doesn't have the nudity, it doesn't have the delimbing, it doesn't have the fucking imminent threats to your life at all times, you know, that Made in Abyss is like spiritually closer to like The Boys, you know, as like a horror series that has elements of other things in it, you know, but it's meant to create a constant sense of tension because at any time anything bad can happen, you know. Necromancer with $2. Talk about something no one wants to hear. No one wants to hear. No one wanted to hear this silence, I'm sure. No, what is something nobody wants to hear? Trying to think of a really good one, a real spicy answer for this. I feel like I've done I feel like that's been this whole show. Not this episode necessarily, but like the whole gender war episode was definitely a lot of stuff people don't want to hear. Or don't want to listen to, don't want to think about. That's why I feel like you have to you kind of have to beat people over the head over and over and over again until like you just break down their walls. You know, like I'm a thought siege artist. Here's something you don't want to think about. You are impossible to change. Changing you is not something that anybody can do except for yourself. But I can affect you through your habits. Because if you, like, say, for instance, habitually wake up at. So thinking about it from an advertiser perspective, right? Like, think about the radio. We know that most people who listen to the radio do so during their drive, and that most people go to work during these hours of day. So, like, the radio has always been like there's a prime time slot where they're putting in all of the advertising that matters, all of the content that they want you to hear. They put it all through this couple hours, and the rest of the day is bullshit. You know, it can be whatever. TV, same way, right? Late night hours, doesn't matter. So if you can meet people where they are, is the best way to affect them. And you cannot tell somebody something and then immediately internalize it unless it's information they were looking for. If somebody's like feeling lost and they're trying to find guidance, they will find their way to information that will make them feel not lost anymore, but it's because they're looking for it. But if you're trying to change someone's direction who doesn't think they're lost, you basically have to brainwash them. Like, you have to convince them, instead of telling them they need to go right instead of going left, you need to tell them that they are going left when they're going right. You need to convince them that when they're heading left, they're actually going right. You know, like, you just need to tell them that they are actually doing the opposite of what they're doing until they believe it and it becomes true, you know? So, like, you know, I've seen, I don't know, I get obsessed with psyops sometimes because I live next to the psyop base. Like, literally, I'm not, like, a lot of people probably don't know this even exists. Psychological Operations, the United States Psychological Operations, is headquartered in Norfolk. And when you read the description of their job, it is basically create messaging that will like change the way people think. And so there are certain things, it's rare that something is obviously a psyop because the whole point of it is not to be obvious. Sometimes I catch on. My favorite psyop is the phrase, "We're all in this together." It's a phrase that's existed throughout a lot of time, but specifically when the pandemic happened, that phrase was inescapable. And it's not a bunch of people independently coming to the same conclusion that they're going to use those words in that combination. But in particular, at the time this was happening, I was listening to a lot of daytime radio. So I would hear it incessantly, especially on more like inner city channels. Anything, especially anything communicating with the black community was very insistent. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. I heard that phrase so fucking much. It is not possible for that to happen organically. Just not. That's a psyop. It was too obvious, but it's a good psyop. It's a healthy psyop, so people wanted to participate in it. People were like, yeah, we're all in this together. That's a great sentiment. Let's all make that psyop. Let's all insist on this together. And that's kind of how society is supposed to work. It's basically all of us agreeing on a psyop. You know, if your psyop isn't working, it's going to get pushback when somebody comes up with a counter psyop. You know, we see a lot of this in memes. We see a lot of this in especially political memes. You know, one side tries to meme a thing, the other side tries to counter meme that thing. You know, but it is a game of trading psychological operations. And I like to think I'm pretty good at psyops, but I'm also very uncoordinated in what I'm trying to accomplish through my psyops. I think I'm pretty good at affecting the way that people think, but it's not like affecting anything other than the way they think. At least not obviously. I would say it's slowly affecting consumer habits and especially creative habits. Actually, that's probably the thing I have the most influence over is people's creative habits. the way people go about writing, drawing, doing their creativity, that's where I have the most impact. I don't know how to turn that into money, other than this, but you know, that's what I think my psyops have the power of. All right, let's get to this Cosmic Blue with $5, who says, why does this keep, my chat keeps jumping. I'm trying to hit like and it keeps jumping up. Speaking of psyops, what's up with anime's seeming obsession with cross-dressing, or Japanese obsession if that's what it is? Not that I'm complaining. I think it's just simply, I think it's more of an anime thing than a Japan thing. It's one part greater cultural clarity and also one part greater insecurity. So I'm going to get into this. This is hard to break down, actually. In the United States, there is very little conception of a trans person at all. We know about the idea of cross-dressers. The most common form is drag queens, right? Like drag queens, most people have heard of a drag queen. Most people have an idea of what a drag queen looks like, right? Japan has a very similar concept of okama. Literally just means gay, pretty much. But typically, an okama historically was basically a trans woman. Eventually, they came up with the phrase "gay boy" in the 60s, like to distinguish okama who were typically working in a club, you know, like cabaret or something like that. Just people who just in their everyday lives are, you know, born as a man, living as a woman. Gay boy, the term they came up with. I learned about all this from the movie Funeral Parade of Roses, which is basically a documentary / movie about the gay boy movement made at the time. So Japan, I just think, has a little bit more historical and cultural consciousness of transgenderism, and also a way smaller land area where like everybody kind of sees each other. Like basically any type of a person that there is a high visibility of. And granted, Japan as a country generally highly discourages you to be a unique type of a person. They're usually trying to get everybody to fit into a square box. But that's kind of helpful in some ways, depending on your experience, as a trans person, because they very much see it as like, if you're not performing male, you need to identify as a woman. You know, like you need to identify with your performance. In America, people will see me, who is obviously performing feminine in my dress, and they'll see the like masculine attributes and they'll think, oh, well, that's a man in a dress. Because they think that the core of who you are comes before the way society sees you. In Japan, they believe the opposite. The core of who you are is meant to sit behind a mask you wear for society. You are meant to try to be normal. And in America, it's like you're meant to just be born normal or you're a freak. Those are your options, you know? Like in Japan, it's like well, we want you to be normal. So we're going to, if you're very feminine and you're always, you know, you act like a woman, we don't want you to be in the fucking boys' room. You know, that's just not what it doesn't make sense culturally for them. So I think that's given them simultaneously more acceptance of cross-dressing and trans people, but also they don't feel the need to say this makes you a woman the way we do. I think like, well, they'll say like, okay, you're performing culturally as that, but not that it's because the American identity is so, you know, personal, where it's like everybody has to see me the way I see me. So it becomes like, well, you know, I have to say I'm a woman and everybody has to say I'm a woman, you know, as opposed to just you know, not being worried about anything other than the social character. Like to a Japanese person, I just don't think that they expect to see the real you when they look at you. That you're not supposed to, unless it's like your, you know, your partner or something. Like in America, there's just expectation that you're just always being yourself all the time, you know, and if you're not, then it's seen as like a liar, or you're like deceiving in some way. But so that makes it, you know, for someone like me, where it's like there's an obvious contradiction and like, okay, I'm dressed like a woman, I've got facial hair, what's going on, you know? And so that's where the confusion comes in, because again, Americans won't just say, oh, I guess that's a trans woman, you know, like they don't categorically pick that. And so I just think there's less of a taste for it in America. There's people more so other transness, whereas in Japan it's more of a curiosity. It's more like, oh, I guess sometimes a boy is a girl, and some of us are really into that, you know. I don't know. My perception on this has changed over the years about anime, where in the early days I thought the point of traps, or as we called them back then, because it is usually a character who looks like a girl and then is revealed to be a boy, and a lot of the times they saw themselves as boys. Like, there's two different categories. There's like proper trans women like Peppo from Gankutsuo, who identifies as a woman, and then there are like the otokonoko stereotype, boy who just kind of looks like a girl and acts like a girl but identifies as a boy. And initially I thought it was more for fetishists and for people who want to fuck those characters. But I was obsessed with those characters, never on that level. Like, I always loved those kinds of characters and I wanted to know more about them, and I was always very disappointed that the stories usually didn't explore their issues more, like what is going on with that character. I wanted to know. And so now, on reflection, I see it more for people like me. I just think there's a lot of people who come to anime because of gender questions, whatever it is you're trying to look for reification of your identity in with anime, like a big part of that can be feeling unbelonging or otherness within your gender. And so anime generally tries to represent, like, if you're building a cast, let's say, of high school students, like, your anime characters are supposed to be the most interesting people in that class, right? Like, typically it's going to be whoever's got superpowers, whoever's got an alien technology, and whoever's transgender. It's just like whatever thing you as an outsider are connecting to, that's the part you're looking for in the anime, So I just think that anime, it has a tendency more so to center itself on a generic protagonist who is supposed to be just everyman. Anybody could project onto this character, but that character doesn't matter. It's about the environment they're in. It's about being in a place full of interesting people. And so the average viewer could project onto the main character because, he's generic. Anybody could project onto him. That's not really the point. The point is that you project onto someone in his environment and you are a part of that clique, unless you yourself do feel that you are just a generic person. But I don't know how many people really believe that who watch anime. I think usually waifuism is less of a I want to marry this character and more like I am this character. Like, this character is how I really see myself. And maybe you don't feel like it's a trans thing, but I definitely think there's a lot of people who feel like, the inner voice inside of me is like Guargura, and like that's why they like that character, It's like, this would be me if I was an anime, But, and that one's actually a real person, but I figured that would be more relatable. Like, it's somebody I can imagine people watching and going, oh yeah, I'm just like this, or I want to be just like this, and so like that character, Well, that was a long rant. So far, every time I've asked if there was one last rant request before I stop, another one has come in. So once more, I'm going to ask if anybody has one last rant request, and if not, I will end the stream. If so, who knows how long we'll keep going for. I can't really bring myself to stop when the rant requests are still coming in, Although my throat's starting to get dry. Eventually, I'll lose the ability to speak, clamp up. Glad the stream has been a good one. I'm sure that last night's stream was a little difficult with all the wind, because we were on the beach for a while and it was brutal. Roger Ramos with $2. Rant about finding your purpose in life. I think I think people tend to think of purpose too singularly. Like, in my opinion, on a genetic level, you fulfilled your purpose by being born, because that's all the information, like, genetically that's necessary. Is like you were born, and so that kind of proves a point on a species level, right? If you were to reproduce, you could see that as, like, that could be what you see as your purpose or whatever. But you don't have to, because even if you don't, that also proves something to the greater schema. Like, whatever, from the lens of humanity as a superorganism, let's say I never reproduce, right? Let's say that if I never reproduce, then it just means that whatever genetically happened here, can't do that again. Like, that's not it wasn't viable for continuation. But that's important data. Every single experiment that the DNA does to itself is equally important. So we need all the answers. So I think you basically have fulfilled your purpose by being born. Whatever you do after that, really just up to you. I think if you're feeling good about your life, you shouldn't think too much about purpose. If you're feeling bad about your life, it's probably because you feel a lack of a sense of purpose. But nobody can give that to you. Nobody can give you that sense of purpose. You just have to decide that you have it. We have another $2 from Sock Rabbit, who simply says, "Do rant." Well, I'm ranting and raving. I'm speaking loudly and emphatically. I'm talking at length and volume. There's some fire, some grit, some bite, some sense of passion, perhaps a little bit of anger, but not so much that it overrides the ability to keep speaking. You reach a level of raving. You could be ranting and raving. But if you start raving more than you're ranting, eventually you got to go to a rave. You can't just do that in front of a camera. You got to go rave at a rave. You can't just be, there's not a lot of ranting at raves. It's kind of hard to hear anything other than bass at a rave. So, keep your ranting and raving in a Venn diagram with a small overlap. Sometimes I do be ranting and raving on this show, but I can never rave too hard without being at a rave. All right, anything else? I'm really, really starting to get thirsty. So at this point, it's like a torture porn. It's like, pay me to put myself through more throat parchness. I have a purse. I should have brought a water bottle. I used to carry this purse all the time, and because of the fact that since we've lived here, I've almost exclusively been carrying around my phone and wallet, I didn't think I needed it, so I just haven't been using it. And then Bird astutely pointed out to me when I told him that because I have so few pockets on most of my clothes, I usually just carry my phone. He was like, you need to have your wallet on you at all times. And then once I started carrying the purse, I realized there's all kinds of shit I could be carrying in here. I got the battery in here. I got phone plugs in here. I could have a water bottle. I could have all my gear. I could have enough gear to be streaming all fucking day. Now think about this. Necromancer says $2. $2 for water. 24-hour rant. No. It don't work that way. But funny. I do usually try to base the length of my rant on how much money I got, depending on what the request is. Sometimes somebody gives a $2 request, and it's really inspiring, and I just kind of keep going. But if I'm in the middle of answering a $2 question, and then like a $5 question comes in, I immediately stop answering that $2 question and go to the $5 question. And then I'll usually, like, let's say a $5 question comes in, and then another $5 question. I'll try to spend like 5 minutes on the first one, but I don't want to wait too long to get to the next one, because then that person's going to fuck off or, stop caring or get mad because they think I didn't answer the question. So there's a very careful timing balance I do with all of this. If no new super chat comes in while I'm still on a rant, I might just keep going on about it because I can't think of another thing to talk about, But But there's definitely a sense of logic of me trying to create like a satisfying bang for buck paradigm. Whereas I see it like the way I see it is like a $1 or $2 donation is basically you pressing like the keep the lights on button. You know, like, hey, it's still going. Hey, you know, signified my appreciation. When you get up to $5, it's like I've really got something to say, or I really want to support the show today. You know, you get up to $10, now you're flexing. Now you're like, I got extra money and I'm giving it to you. If you give me $20, I'm like, I'll remember this. I'll remember this. I'll remember this. More than that, and I just get astonished. I get stun locked. I'm like, who are you? Where did you get this money? Why did you give it to me? You could have fed yourself. How am I getting all this money? The funny thing about live streaming all the time is that I inevitably end up talking about like the illogic of the live stream, just because it's like, oh, I don't know, it's a subject in and of itself. I don't know if people get annoyed at that though. Like, some people really hate inside baseball type stuff, or like pulling the curtain back. Some people really love that type of stuff. You know, for me, it's kind of like, I just enjoy being really transparent, because I want people to understand that in order to be successful, there are certain things that everyone has to do and that a lot of them aren't going to talk about. You know, like, I'm always going to tell you if something I do is going to like fuck you over as an audience. I'll let you know. If I do something to fuck you over, I'll admit it. You know, I'll apologize. Be like, yeah. Sometimes I make huge mistakes, and I can't always do perfect. But there's so many people who just act like none of this is happening at all. Like, there's no decision making. And I hate being in competition with those people. I hate that, you know, my honesty is going to hold me back in comparison to other people's dishonesty. So what I would prefer to do is be honestly dishonest. To just like do the same evil thing that somebody else would do to succeed, but tell you I'm doing it so that you realize that we're all doing it and that you should start doing it, you know? And then, instead of everybody being worried about who's fucking them over, you know everyone's fucking everybody over. It's a win-win-win-win, lose-lose-lose, win-lose-lose, win-win-win-win-lose situation, or something. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm just making shit up. I think I'm gonna end the stream in a moment. I'm nearing the park entrance, getting closer to the cars and the noise and all that. And that's life, folks, indeed. There's a feeling that as soon as you say something meta, there's no going back. That's also true. And like that people will expect the stuff to stay the same. You know, like, you'll say something about the way you're operating, and then, you know, if somebody never hears you say the next thing about the way you're operating, then they'll just assume you're still doing it the old way forever. Like, there's a lot that can go wrong with being too open. But I also, I think that maybe if I was a very powerful person with lots of money, I wouldn't be so quick to give away my trade secrets. But rather, I would rather anything I know that could help somebody else, I want them to have it, because they might give some back to me. You know, like, anybody who takes my advice, runs with it, and becomes hugely successful, if they are so kind as to pay it back, you know, I know I can gain something that way. So I'm always willing to give away for free in the hopes that my generosity will be recognized and I'll be allowed to stay alive on this here planet Earth by way of goodwill. And again, that's the kind of thing that people call sociopathic when you say it out loud, but it's just kind of how things work. So not admitting it, to me, is the actual psychopath move. It's like, I don't know, acting like you're above instinct or above logic is goofy to me. Another super chat from Also Weeb with $5. First time super chat, long time leech. Hey, Me too, though. Rant about Gen Z from TikTokers, anime fans, trans folk, rag on the generation. Big fan of the show, The New Sun. Well, Gen Z, honestly, I don't know most of Gen Z very much, like, because, I don't know, what's the oldest Gen Z people? Would be, like, 27 or something right now. Like, I consider my brother Shade to be, like, the first Zoomer. You know, he was born in 1997, he grew up with Skype, like, that's a Zoomer to me. I think the Zoomers have grown up, at least when I meet young people who are in like their early 20s, I'm usually just shocked by how worldly they are, because people weren't that even in my generation, you know? Like, when I was growing up, it was not normal to concern yourself with anything other than your social circle at all. Like, people just did not give a fuck about anything that did not immediately pertain to them, especially young people. Like, your parents cared about the news. Your parents had an opinion about the fucking war in Gaza. No high school kid when I was in high school gave a single fuck or had heard of the fucking Israel-Palestine conflict, you know? But like, now we're in a world where everybody's online, where all of the information is trying to get into your face. And, you know, it's just, you got fucking 17-year-olds walking around caring about shit that has nothing to do with them at all. And I think it's mostly created a sort of glazed mentality where everybody's just kind of like, yeah, everything's fucked and there's nothing you can do, you know? So it is what it is. And unfortunately, they're sad about that. Like, to me, that's the happy position to have. It's like, fuck it. There's nothing I can do. I'm just gonna have a good time, you know? But like, most of them are like, there's nothing I can do. Like, why do you want to do something? Fucking doing something sucks. Doing something is boring and shitty. And maybe they just know that, and so it's the part of them that feels like they should do something, fighting against the part of them that's like, yeah, but I don't want to, and so they feel guilty. It's just a very guilty generation. And I think it's the biggest problem they've got for themselves, is that guilt will hold you down, you know? Millennials were already a pretty guilty generation. I think Zoomers are an even guiltier generation. And I'm hoping that when enough boomers have died and we've kind of moved on to, like, you know, the Gen Xers are the oldest people, the Xennials are the ones in charge of culture, you know, or in charge of the world. The millennials are like all now parents, you know, and the Zoomers finally have a chance to be like 30 somethings. I'm hoping that there will be space, like space will have been created above them for them to jump up and take culture. Because I think the Zoomers are smart. I think they're probably the smartest generation that's existed so far. They're just the one with the least sense of personal direction. Like, Zoomers all understand the world better than people from previous generations did by their age, but they don't understand themselves or their own place within that world as well as most people did in previous generations by that age. You know, most people for most of history, like, just did what their dad did or their mom did, and that was their life. Like, it's all they knew, it's all they thought they had to know. Now you think you need to know everything, you think you need to be everything, and, you know, eventually, when enough old people are dead and all these spots open up of things that are necessary for our world, like, you know, when suddenly there's like 20 senator spots open, and it's like, fuck, well, who are we gonna fill all these slots with? There's gonna be a bunch of ambitious 30-somethings who, for the first time ever, feel like they can do something. That's what I'm hoping for, is that there's gonna be like a big Zoomer takeover of a bunch of key points of culture, because I can work with Zoomers. Like, I don't know if all millennials feel this way. I can work with Zoomers, maybe more easily than millennials. I was shunned by the millennial generation, you know, I was bullied out of my generation, so I had to inspire a new generation to like people like me from a fucking young age so that I could keep existing. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, the Zoomers are more predisposed to listen to someone like me than my own generation. I know I was supposed to be shitting on the Zoomers, but I don't want to. I like the Zoomers. They're cool. The Zoomers are fine. The Zoomers are gonna, you know, TikTok is, I think the biggest problem with TikTok and with short content is that it creates FOMO more than anything. It's just a FOMO machine. It's just like, you're not this attractive. You don't have a dog this cool. You've never been to a place this beautiful. You can't afford a steak this nice. Like, that's all I see when I go through shorts and TikTok. It's just constant reminders that I'm not doing something that looks awesome. And now, granted, when I'm feeling, if I feel really good about myself and I'm watching those, it's not a negative feeling. It's like, wow, that guy's doing something cool. Or, wow, look how cool that dog is, you know? But like, if I'm just kind of bored and scrolling through stuff, which if I'm resorting to shorts, I'm fucking bored. I must be real fucking bored. I must be real out of shit to watch if I start watching YouTube shorts or TikToks. So yeah, that to me, it's just a FOMO machine, but I don't know if other people feel that way. Roger Ramos with $5. Rant about the greatest generation of all, boomers. Oh boy. I feel like I've done a big boomer rant on one of these already, but boomers, they just are awful for the most part. And I think it's because they really did have everything handed to them and they've held on to it. They just haven't passed it on. And I think that, so up until a certain point historically, you know, like, we didn't have good medicine. We didn't have like as many people as we needed to make society good. There was plenty of room for more. Most people were trying to have as many kids as possible because most of those kids were going to die. You know, they were going to die in childbirth or somewhere early along the line. You know, they were going to get diseases. Most people weren't living that long. So like, I understand the mentality of create as many humans as possible. But post-industrial revolution, it became like, okay, we're creating as many people as possible to man all these factories, but like, how do we keep all those people fed? How do we keep all those people alive and employed? Like, there's just too many, like, throwing stuff at a problem on one end that creates a problem on the other end. And you know, in post-World War II, I also understand a lot of the world had been eliminated. Most of the adults were dead. So those who were left were like, we gotta fucking literally repopulate the earth. So we end up with this massive fucking generation of baby boomers that went from like World War II to the late 60s or whatever. And they all grew up with this like incredible sense of entitlement that they had, you know, built this world that was like this awesome society. But really it's like, no, the generation who built this world all died, and then you all got to inherit it, and then you didn't pass it on to anybody. You know, you've just held on to it, and none of you are dead because you didn't have a great war. You didn't have a big elimination. You're all still here. You're all still sitting around on the same plots of land, in the same houses, in the same, you know, buying the same shit, and not learning anything new, except for when you have to, and only very begrudgingly and at great pains, often at great costs to young people who are very patiently trying to help you continue your life in the world, even though it's a drain on ours. But you know, when people are there, it's hard to get rid of them. You know, it's hard to just be like, we got to eliminate people because there's too many. It's like, no, we've just got to deal with this problem. It will solve itself eventually. No one lives forever. We didn't expect the biggest generation ever to come at the same time as the biggest revolution in medical technology. You know, we didn't expect these people to be around forever. By the time you get to the millennials, we're like, we've got too many fucking people. Most of us have nothing to do. No sense of purpose. Wandering around. homeless, doing YouTube streams, fucking not building anything because all the space is taken up, feeling bad about most of what we did build because of all the negative consequences it had, you know, fearing to have children because we don't want to bring them into the world that we now realize is awful, you know, like, there's just so much less feeling of drive of like, oh, we need to make more people than there had been back then. It's like, nah, as soon as this wave dies off, it might be just right. I think it might be a self-correcting problem where, like, it's unfortunate for everybody who's lost their lives in the meantime of this shuffle. But I do think that when all the boomers die off, the power vacuum that it creates might just shape a much better world. Or a much worse one. But I've got my fingers crossed. World is not anywhere near overpopulated. I didn't say that. I said there were too many people. Overpopulated is buzzword, bullshit, nonsense that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. America's mostly empty. Look at where I am. You could fit fucking 500,000 people here. You could fit plenty of houses. It's not overpopulated. There's too many people. We don't need them. We don't need this many people. It doesn't do anything for us. It drags everybody and everything down. Everyone is worse off because of how many people there are. There's limited resources on this here earth of attention, of, you know, of anything. There's only so much you can do. And the more people you create, the harder it is to do anything. You need to work on the quality of the people. Smaller number of people, higher quality people. That's the right way. That's the sweet spot. I think we can get there. He wasn't responding to me? Okay, yeah, well, sure, whatever. Necromancer with $2. How would have Vietnam go if Nazca was there? How would have Vietnam go if Nazca was there? I assume she would have ended the war and brokered peace, right? That's what she does in Nazca, isn't it? She, like, Jesus's and wins. I don't remember how Nazca ends. I read the whole manga, but it was like a decade ago. Shit. Well, you know, she would have flown around on her ceramic thingy and dodged all the bullets and freed all the bugs. I don't know. Alright, it's time for this to end. It's time for me to wrap up this stream. I will be back probably in like an hour or two, maybe 3. We'll see. Later.